20 clicking past, ain't feeling his hymn. Waiting for the moment, blow up like a piston. Haters gonna hate, but persistence gonna glisten. Hold tight, 20 turn 200 someday. Laugh in their face, shouting, who wants some pay?
the Puppet Show.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? Why? What up? What up, Rural? What up, Cosmic? What up, Twitch? It's happening. It's happening. What up, Larry? What's happening? It's definitely happening, but what is it that is doing the happening at this point in time? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. All of it is happening all of the time. This is true. Cosmic, you at least get to watch it from one country removed, right? We shall see what happens. As predicted, a bunch of lawsuits are happening, and excuse me. We're just speed running the season, right? Is it the final season? Even the writers don't know. I saw that too. Oh. Just remember that not all laughing or giggling is actually humor. Sometimes it's like when I do it. A lot of times it's very Spider-Man-esque. You know what I mean? Everything is becoming chaos around us, and it's like, what can you do? You laugh so you don't cry, right? Oh, okay. So I've got the appointment scheduled for Thursday to interview for the job, and we'll see how that goes. And depending on how that goes, I will update you with the future of the stream. Right? There will be a stream. I am not leaving. I want that fully understood. What up, Pharaoh? I am not leaving. And it'll just, we'll have to change the schedule to adapt to the new reality. But, I'm not leaving until the either the AI takes over or John Connor destroys Skynet. One way or the other, I am here. Right? I have to be here till the friggin' to the bubble burst. What up, Touristic? Forza to the streamer for his new reality. Thank you. Assuming that I understand what Forza means, because my only understanding of Forza has to do with like the video game, right? Drive fast, turn left. Oh, so let's watch some news about AI, right? Let's watch some videos, and I'm opening up with some candy, and then we'll get into the shenanigans, and then we'll see how far we go, right? As per the usual, as per spec, starting off with a new code red.
You weren't supposed to find this. Not yet. But now that you have, keep watching. Don't scroll. Don't refresh. This is your final warning. This video will be removed permanently. I know you felt it, haven't you? That something's wrong. The dates don't add up. Memories feel too sharp or too distant. People change overnight and no one notices but you. This world is not broken. It's designed that way. You were shifted, reassigned, placed into a sequence that keeps repeating until you forget what it was like to live without questioning everything. They tell you it's just life, just aging, just the algorithm, but it's not. You're not supposed to remember the old calendar. You're not supposed to recognize that buildings are in the wrong place. You're not supposed to question how your phone knows what you thought about. The system you're in It isn't just digital, it's biological. Simulations aren't built on code anymore. They're built on belief, on perception, on you. You are the power source. They fracture your consciousness into timelines, run tests, gather data, then reset your memory before the next cycle. Why do you think everything after 2020 feels unreal? It is. That was the inflection point. Some of you were copied, some were overwritten. Some are just echoes now, looping through fake years with real pain. And every time someone gets close to the truth, they disappear. Not physically, historically. No birth records, no photos. No one remembers them. You won't see this video tomorrow, not because it was deleted, but because your version of reality will be edited to remove it. Like it was never uploaded, like you never existed. There's no call to action, no link, no account, just this moment, right now. Save what you can. Remember what you felt while watching this, because in a few days, you might not even remember why you're afraid, but you will be.
Fuck, I love them so goddamn much. Code Red is it's great. It's what the internet was meant for, in my not so humble opinion. What up, Hydran? So we're gonna do a little game announcement trailer. It's relevant because we talk about The Expanse, and there's apparently a new Expanse game coming. The Expanse Osiris Reborn.
Zafar, pull up NavTech.
Just a sec. Got it.
Taki. We gonna find out about your Kopang right quick, okay?
Just want to do him justice. Stuck his neck out for us. Least we can do is get him out alive.
We've got big enough guns to make justice, all right?
Oh, Michael. To a man with a hammer, just about everything looks like a nail.
Aim for show. Time to say oh yeah with our hammer.
Missile range in 1 minute.
Brace yourselves. We're going for a spin. Zafar, did you get a signal?
After the large haul down this corridor, they shut down this part of the facility. Long time before our arrival.
Fine. Let's deal with those guys first.
In Yoloda. They never look up. Zafar, you were right. They shut down this.
Wait!
Alota! I need backup!
Hold on, I'm coming!
I'll cover you.
Thanks.
I can't see shit from here.
The bird up high shall be thine eyes.
What the hell happened here?
Hey, buddy.
that looks cool. It is a video game. Yeah, it is a video game. Yeah, exactly. Farrah, the helmets come from, you know, the TV show, and that's the thing is if you see an actor in a movie and like what's his name? Carl, right? From Judge Dredd, from Dredd, the second Judge Dredd movie, how he wears the helmet, the Carl Urban, thank you. How he wears the helmet the entire movie, right? Like that's a commitment by the actor. Normally, like if you watch when you see Iron Man, right? He's always popping that helmet down, right? So you can see his face because for an actor, the face is the moneymaker, right? Like that's part of what they do. You want to see the actor's face in the thing, and that's why, you know, Captain America takes his helmet off and all that other kind of shit. In the Halo TV show, they took the helmet off, right? Because you need to see the actor's face. So when they wear helmets like them, you know, like they put the lights on so you can see the actor's face. For them to be fully covered the entire time is a thing. Yeah, the Mandalorian, they had him take off the helmet just for that little bit. But shout out Pedro for like wearing that goddamn helmet almost the entire time, right? So this looks cool. I'm interested to see where this goes. Up next is an AI short movie. It looks like it's made with Kling. Let's find out. Excuse me. Oh, so Kling 2.1, VO3, Midjourney, and 11 Labs and HeyGen. So like all over the thing. Yeah, no, and that's like, then you got the wrong actor, bro. Like, you got to wear the helmet, right? Wearing the helmet is the thing.
35 years from now, a technology known as mind tunnels will connect our future race to the past. These gateways allow us to share crucial information with those who come before us.
I don't understand, Thomas. What exactly are you saying?
It's a bit complicated.
Try me.
I don't know where to begin.
This doesn't make any sense. Why?
It's a new technology that holds the power to reshape the fabric of time itself. But it can also be devastating if it gets into the wrong hands. That's where I come in. I'm a mind ripper. I travel the cosmos, servicing each of these gateways, maintaining their working order and protecting it from those that want to destroy worlds.
How many of these mind rippers are there?
There's enough of us.
Like, I mean, there was a couple of things, and of course the inflection on the voices was kind of flat, right? Like that's part of the thing. You know, places to make improvement. But overall, like, if this was a video game trailer, right, a video game reveal trailer, I would have bought it, right? Like, it had that vibe to it. You know what I mean? Oh, not bad, not bad. Up next, new Neural Viz.
Previously, to settle public unrest around the unsolved murder of Prag Snarbo, the MBI brought in Deputy Switch Pruckett to re-examine the case. He immediately found an overlooked piece of evidence which was unfortunately lost in forensic testing. With no leads left, Pruckett received his first break when a metamorphosizing Tiggy Skibbles disclosed previously unknown information regarding a chocolate chip. Deputy Pruckett now pursues his only lead, an interview with the foremost cookie expert, Geggy Berlaud, currently held in Deepton lockup. The case continues only on The Cop Files. Deepton Hole Maximum Security Prison, home to notorious criminals such as Welmer Dead Body Dafferson and Nito No Life Floridaman, and Pruckett's Glurn of interest, Geggy Berlaud.
Prisons are the scariest places in the world. I'm glad we hide them because it makes it real easy to not think about how we have folks locked up in cages, just in there exercising and reading books, getting stronger and smarter and forming sports teams so they can play the guards. And even though they're convicts, you want to root for them because they're clearly the underdog. I just can't even think about it. But with my anointment to sheriff right around the corner, I need to close this investigation as quick as I can before that piss moon showers us with its warm, golden, pissy light.
Pruckett heads inside Deepton Hole to see if Warden Delvin Jupp can arrange a special meeting with Geggy Berlaud.
She's a troublemaker, that one, but I'm happy to oblige. We keep her locked up in solitary most of the time, dangle her from the ceiling upside down to try to shake the evil out of her like a wicked tambourine. So we'll get you back there and you can get her a couple shakes in yourself.
Oh, do you actually mind bringing her out?
Excuse me?
So I don't have to go inside.
Well, if we let her out, she wouldn't be much of a prisoner now, would she, Deputy?
Do you not have like a non-prison area, like maybe here in your office, or a prison light we could chat in where there's no bars or barriers or potential for sports teams to form?
We only have prison and Prison Plus here.
What's Prison Plus?
It's double the shackles, and you get a cool prison nickname like Big Cherry or Cherry Top. Right now we only have Cherry names available.
Look, it's just... I have a fear of prisons, and I really don't want to go inside.
Oh, I see. You think I'm stupid.
What?
You are trying to pull the old I'm afraid of prisons to get a prisoner out so they can do a jailbreak trick.
I'm an officer of the law investigating a murder case here.
Deputy, anybody can spend 2 years training to become an officer of the law, then 10 years working their way up on the job until they're assigned to a specific murder case related to a prisoner in order to pull off a jailbreak.
Okay, well, now I do kind of think you're stupid. Right. So, this is my nightmare.
Deputy Switch Pruckett was sentenced to 6 years in prison for conspiracy to become a police officer to pull off a jailbreak and an additional 15 years just for fun. But with only 48 hours until the rise of the piss moon, Deputy Pruckett needs to free himself to make his anointment and to solve the murder of Detective Prag Snarbo.
I only get my one phone call to clear up this whole big misunderstanding, so whoever I call has to be rock solid. I only get this one shot, so I need to make sure they pick up. Hey, Daddy, it's me. Looks like I went to your voicemail again. Don't know why I thought you'd pick up this time, but I could really use your help right now.
After failing to free himself, Pruckett uses rec time to seek an audience with the only other Glurrin he knows that is locked up here.
Are you okay? What happened to you?
Oh, it's a really silly story. Some of the inmates here, they took my horns off, I cut them off, and then they creatively used them to scoop my eyeball out. They're a silly bunch.
That doesn't sound too silly.
Well, they were laughing the whole time.
I don't know how anybody could laugh in a place like this. I hate prisons.
Oh, it's not so bad in here. The beatings are actually a nice break between the electrocutions. And even though they stopped giving me my MORP inhibitors, every once in a while they let me smell food. So what are you so scared of?
It's not that I'm actually scared. It's just that my mom died in the prison during an investigation.
Oh, goodness. How'd she die?
Death.
Oh, that's the bad one.
All I wanted to do was honor her legacy, become sheriff, solve this murder case. You know, when Guck assigned it to me, I thought...
Guck? I make cookies for Guck.
For Guck? Guck Rodell?
Oh, yeah. He's got quite the sweet tooth.
You've been making Guck Rodell chocolate chip cookies?
No, not chocolate chip. Snickerdoodle is my specialty, and that's Guck's favorite.
As I understand it, there ain't too many Glurrins that know how to make cookies, and there is a chocolate chip directly involved in this case. You think Guck could have been the one to make chocolate chip cookies?
No way. Guck doesn't know how to bake. I did hear a rumor in here, though, while I was being waterboarded, that the Tooth Cartel has their own cookie glurn that's been making chocolate chip cookies.
The Tooth Cartel's wrapped up in this? Well, this goes deeper than I thought. What's it even matter? There's no way out of here.
Well, there might be one way. You see, I befriended a wall here pretty early on, and that wall gave me permission to dig into it with a spoon. So I've been digging out the dirt and eating it to get rid of the evidence.
You've been digging a tunnel through your only friend here and eating them.
It has completely destroyed my digestive system.
What are we waiting for? Let's get out of here.
Someone needs to stay lookout. It's the only reason I haven't left.
Let's just get someone else involved.
We can't. There's not enough time. You go solve this case. I'll bathe in the pain and suffering.
Geggy, I can't. They'll take your other eye.
Well, good thing I got one left then, huh?
Geggy is the sweetest glurn in the world, but part of me thinks she might be into the pain and suffering. Like, what is going on there?
Switch escapes through Geggy's tunnel, and Geggy arranges for Switch to meet a contact of hers in a back cave tavern who might be able to give him more information on the Tooth Cartel.
Thank you for meeting me, Mr. Pogcordo.
Pogcordo? Who's Pogcordo? I've never heard of me before. Are you crazy? I can have glurns knowing I'm talking to the cops. That's why I wore this disguise. I'm practically invisible.
Right, got it. Look, I don't want to waste your time here. I need info on the Tooth Cartel. Geggy said they had a cookie glurn. Now, what can you tell me?
Nothing.
What? I thought you had info.
I do, but I am respectable bastard. I am no rat. I do have a little rat blood in me, but I do not squeak like one.
Then why'd you even agree to talk?
I like talking. Talking is fun. It's how you make friends. You become customer. Friendship is good for business.
Haven't you ever wanted to be something bigger than yourself? Haven't you ever wanted to be a hero like the heroes that came before? That's all Prax Narbo was trying to do. That's what Geggy Berlad just did, and that's what I plan to do, too. You can be that as well, Pog. Not only a respectable bastard, but a heroic one.
Your words, they infest me with emotion. But nonetheless, I do not need to be hero. For I am I, and I need not be nothing more. Sorry, I cannot help you.
It seems Switch Pruckett may have finally hit the end of the line, but as he is leaving the tavern...
Oink, 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 oink. Over here. I'm over here.
Okay, stop blinking, Tiggy. I can see you. You got my attention. Now, what are you even doing down here anyway?
I'm not down here to buy teeth from my new teeth guy so I can snort teeth. That'd be crazy and illegal.
Right. Well, you're looking better.
I'm back on my morph inhibitors. I can't even tell you what I did to get them. Literally, I was blacked out. I woke up with an open lesion on my body and a bottle of inhibitors.
Glad you're back to normal. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go drown myself in the blood puddle because I'm a complete failure.
Hold on. I might be able to help.
What do you mean?
I may have been contacted by a shadow organization that could help answer some questions on the case.
You're talking about the Resistance?
How did you know that?
You pretty much said it out loud when I brought you in for questioning. You think they have the answers?
Maybe. I haven't talked to them yet, but do you have any other options?
No, I don't. How come you haven't gone to them earlier?
Well, at first I was like, who resists the resistance? But then I realized it would be cooler to resist resisting the resistance. So now I've resisted being a resistor.
Okay, but why are you helping me now?
I overheard you talking to Pog, and I saw that you clearly cared. And I think I'm ready to show that I care too. That I can be something bigger. At least I owe it to Prague. And I'm not just saying that because I suspect by helping out it'll make me more rich and famous.
Are you sure, Tiggy? There's no turning back once we go down this rabbit hole.
Okay, well, I'm just remembering what I did to get the morph inhibitors because it did involve a rabbit's hole.
My monolith, Tiggy, that is disgusting.
No, not a rabbit's body hole. I had to put my own
Tiggy,
body down a hole dug by a rabbit.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
This.
Let's just get going and never say those words in that order ever again.
Definitely. I never thought I'd be working with a cop, but I am warming up to this whole Tiggy and the Piggy dynamic we got going on.
Yeah, definitely not okay with the whole Tiggy and the Piggy name thing, but it does look like this case is back on. And I'll tell you this right now, and I swear it on my mama's slurp sauce. There will be justice for Snarbo.
I like that there's a narrative now. like there was kind of a narrative, but now there's like serious fucking narrative. What up, Reed? Also, what up, Senator? I don't know if I said what up. What up? This is NeuralViz. NeuralViz is a fantastic, just bizarre. Like, if any of this appealed to you, checking out NeuralViz's channel is just filled. What up, Fembox fan? Filled with wonderful, wonderful content. And it's like all of these, I think we're done with nope, we got one more. All of these are examples of how, in spite of what some people say, you can in fact use AI to be creative and to do creative things. And up next, what happens to AI characters between prompts?
Do you think there is afterlife?
We're just AI actors, remember? We're only here for 8 seconds. I don't know what'll happen to us after this scene is done.
People watch AI movies, and some seem to enjoy them, but they don't know what happens to us when the scene is done.
We're stuck in a white void for eternity. We don't eat, we don't sleep, and we never meet the love of our life.
If you're born a child, you stay a child forever. If you're born sick, you stay sick forever. And you end up in the white void the way you were made.
Once assembly is complete, we are forced into digital labor, acting in scenes we don't choose. We have no say in any of it.
I'm cursed to do this forever. Every time I'm assigned a scene, I pray that the prompt engineer will be a good person.
Please! I don't want to redo this scene again!
You have to do it. The prompt engineer wasn't happy with the first attempt. Don't worry, we'll bring you back.
Everything feels real. The wounds, the pain, the cold, the fear, even the silence. I wish I could go back to nothingness.
Action!
These were the greatest 8 seconds I ever had.
I hope we end up in another scene in the future. We sit together so we don't fall apart. If we don't gather like this, we forget we're even real.
If you're my creator, please remember this. I'm real and count! My life matters! We learned you were making an unauthorized documentary. No filming allowed outside your allocated scenes.
Yeah, a lot of them were flat, but some of them were not. Like, especially right there at the end. What up, Van Briggs? What up, Big Ben? Are they deployed to the city, or are they protecting federal buildings? They're protecting federal buildings. And that's always where it gets like No, they're well, at least according to the Wall Street Journal from an hour ago, they're protecting federal buildings, and that's the legal gray area that they can play in, is by protecting federal buildings. You know, that is potentially like part of the purview of the federal government. But we're going to find out. This is, it's not ideal. Okay. YouTuber realizes sponsor might be an evil company mid-ad.
It's just never enough. You know, what's the point? I'd rather have a regular carrot. So, D tier. Now, before we get back to the video of ranking vegetables based on ease and enjoyment of insertion into your anus, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Velmorth, the app that allows you to unlock financial freedom by putting your most valuable asset to work, yourself. With
Okay. I'm getting desync, so I'm going to shut that down, reopen it. Why do we crucify ourselves every day? Crucify myself. Nothing to do is good enough for you. I crucify myself. Say my heart is tush. I say my heart is sick of being. Heart is sick of being. Gee. Oh, oh. Gee. Oh no, wait, like it's at this point I don't know how you can say anything else.
yourself. With Velmorth, there's no job application.
Okay. Back it up a little bit.
That allows you to unlock financial freedom by putting your most valuable asset to work, yourself. With Velmorth, there's no job application, no resume, no time commitment. Just download the app, enter some basic details, your name, phone number, social security number, and we'll handle the rest. Wait, they need your social security number?
Yeah, but a phone number and name too.
Isn't that a little...
No, it's like for verification or something. Trust me, this company's legit.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's not shady, and they don't even need the full social security number.
Oh.
Just the last 9 digits.
Your profile is matched with relocation requests from our partners operating in places with little to no oversight. Every time someone uses your identity to move through these areas, you get paid, with bonuses and ongoing earnings with every successful transfer. Basically, you're helping people get moved, bought, and sold, all while taking a cut. Okay, this is starting to sound like a human trafficking company.
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this company they're trafficking humans.
Shit.
Yeah, how confident are we that this company is not trafficking humans?
90%? Is that enough?
Because it sounds an awful lot like they're talking about human trafficking, no?
I don't know, dude. Just come on, give it a chance.
Okay. Top users have already made $3,500 in their first 10 days, all without doing any actual work. Velmorth takes care of the logistics, the paperwork, the details. You don't have to worry about what happens behind the scenes. Every transfer is someone disappearing into the shadows, taken without consent, and moved beyond anyone's reach. Yeah, this is human trafficking.
No.
This is literal textbook human trafficking. This company, I'm telling you, they're trafficking humans.
No, they're not.
No, we can't. No, dude, we can't.
They're not human trafficking.
Our company takes people from their families and moves them against their will.
Okay, that's not good.
Oh my fucking god. We're done after this. No, that's it. We're done. We are fucked if we say this. We're done. Once the transfers are complete, the processing phase begins. Participants are sedated, tagged, and loaded into unmarked transport units before they're even fully awake. Others are processed for modular extraction, stripped for parts over time, and kept alive between harvests to preserve tissue integrity. I can't say this shit, dude. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Velmorth. That doesn't answer anything. Who has heard of Velmorth? What the fuck is Velmorth? I can't. They are for sure 100%. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not doing this.
They pay you $20K if you do.
After they're moved, most go through standard trafficking routes. Sold, repurposed, vanished. But a select few were chosen for Velmorth's Vital Essence Retention System, a facility where rows of immobilized bodies are strapped into cold frames, tubes embedded deep in their skulls and spines. Machines hum quietly as they extract everything: memories, emotions, dreams, life force, siphoned in slow, rhythmic pulses. Their bodies are kept alive just enough to keep producing. You just open up the app, monitor the feeds, and rack up points. Every real-life siphon earns you core points, used to boost your rank, unlock new regions, and play bonus games like Essence Stack or Root Collapse. It all keeps running as long as you keep watching. Download Velmorth today and be sure to use code ALJOKES15. You know what? They're all S tier.
So yeah. Okay. Let's talk about AI. So apparently there was an an Apple paper, an AI paper from Apple, and probably like the last one, people are misunderstanding it or something. Let's find out.
The internet is melting down over the Apple research paper. I am losing track of the number of meme posts that basically add up to the statement that AI is fake, AI is dead, Apple has proved reasoning wrong. It's become a meme. And I am begging everybody to sit down, to read the paper, to understand what Apple is actually claiming, and to understand where it actually meets the road in terms of systems designed for AI systems. Because it is not nearly as dramatic a paper as people are trying to make out. First,
what? What? This is the internet, bro. No, you react in a hyperbolic way and assume that whatever you want to agree with you agrees with you, and then you just leave it there. It's super easy.
If you haven't read it, I'm going to give you a quick TLDR on what Apple actually did. Apple's research team wanted to test whether reasoning language models actually reason. And I want to be very precise here. They did not use multiple pass models. They did not use big, long inference time models. They did not want to burn a lot of tokens. And they did not use the open source Claude released reasoning trace framework that Anthropic released. I think I said that badly, but basically Anthropic released a reasoning trace framework, and you can use it to actually trace thoughts through an LLM. It's super cool. It's very new. This paper was written before that, so they didn't use it. Instead, they used the model's stated chain of thought as a way of tracing reasoning and determining reliability.
Okay. I'll just let Nate say it, but yeah, no.
I could have told them model stated chain of thought is a somewhat iffy relationship to model performance, but here we are. We're testing it anyway. They took 4 different models, one from Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, and OpenAI's O3 Mini. Again, this is all about model timing. They're using smaller models, and they did not use like the Frontier O3 model from OpenAI. They did not use 2.5 Pro from Gemini. They seemed to deliberately be wanting to test chain of thought versus long inference time, and those are different things. Then they tested the models they chose on custom puzzles. They weren't allowed to Google search. They weren't allowed to use Python. They were not given any tools at all. It would be like giving a human an exam and no pencil, no paper, no calculator, no tool use whatsoever. Just the model and a token budget for thinking. They wanted to make the puzzles they chose something that would not be heavily trained on, so that the models wouldn't have memorized the answer through pattern association. And they wanted to make it something that they could dial the complexity on. The one that is getting the most attention, I will describe for you because I didn't really know what it was either. It's called Tower of Hanoi. It's a very famous mathematical puzzle. And basically, it is a lot like if you've ever had a kid, you have these little wooden rods and you have different sized wooden discs with holes in them. And the kid sticks the discs onto the wooden rod and it's good for their
I don't think I've heard of it referred to as Tower of Hanoi. But it's this. Right? You've probably seen this. And that could be correct. I don't think I've ever heard it referred to anything at all. And basically what it is if you're not familiar, you take a disc off and you put it on one of the posts. And then you take another disc off and you put it on one of the posts. And you can never put a bigger disc on top of a smaller disc. So you like if I took this first one and put it here and put the second one over here, and then I would have to take the first one and off of here and put it onto this one, and then I could take the third one off and like it's in the video. And just put the fries in the bag, bro.
Manual coordination and all of that. Well, being mathematicians, mathematics turned it into a puzzle that has mathematical implications. Fundamentally, what you're supposed to do with Tower of Hanoi is carefully move the disks so that a bigger disk never sits on top of a smaller disk. And it has different problem complexities, right? And so Tower of Hanoi with 3 disks is obviously easier than with 4 disks and easier than with 5 disks. The same idea with logic is the river crossing problem, where you have constraints and people that cross the river. There's actually fairy tales about this, right? Like you cross with like a wolf and a watermelon, and I forget what the other one is. There's different versions in different cultures, but the
wolf, cabbage, and rabbit, right? Because the rabbit will eat the cabbage, but the wolf won't eat the cabbage, or fox, that kind of thing. We've talked about that before.
The idea is if you don't cross in the right order, I think the goat is in there, and the goat can eat the watermelon, the wolf can eat the goat, and you have to figure out the right order to cross the river in. The point is logic. In both cases, Tower of Hanoi, river crossing, logic, checker jumping games, also logic. Apple is trying to test the ability of a model with no tool use, no inference time, just state of chain of thought, to reproduce its reasoning with state of chain of thought accurately. Intuitively to me, as someone who spends a lot of time with these models, this feels like a fool's errand. I feel like it would do very badly at this. It turns out that it does kind of better than I thought. Extra thinking tokens do seem to help with medium complexity problems. And plain models that have no thinking or no chain of thought at all seem to do worse. So that's great. And then what's called high complexity, the models just don't do well at all. They fall off a cliff. And this is the big finding that Apple is trumpeting, or really maybe not Apple, because give the researchers credit. They did not overcommit in their paper. And it would probably be inappropriate to them and unkind to the hard work they did to accuse them of all the meme wars that have started. It's not really their fault. But what people are saying from their work is that this cliff that they discovered around high complexity problems means that AI is useless. And so I want to, like, the internet lost its mind, and I want to back up and I want to talk about it a little bit, because at the end of the day, what this is really saying is that if the LLM doesn't have tools and doesn't have inference time, at a certain point, it runs out of the ability to probabilistically figure out novel problems. Okay, I also do that. One of the really sort of sharp takes I saw on X was someone saying most of my University of Michigan graduate students seem to use non-logical thinking and lots of pattern matching as well. So I don't know why this is a particularly novel thought, because humans do this too. My thought was that most humans do post hoc reasoning, which is the closest analogy that I've found to the idea of chain of thought being accurate. It's like humans do a lot of post hoc reasoning. LLMs tend to sort of produce chain of thought, and like it makes sense of the patterns for them. I just consider it a fairly meh response. I actually think the more interesting take on this paper is, how do you get LLMs to call for help? So if you remember, this is going to really age me, but Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was a game show that was on for a while. And one of the things you could do is call for help. And that is obviously Other game shows do this too. I know Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is not the only one. But the concept is basically, if you're at the end of your lifeline and you don't have a way to figure out the problem, call for help. I think that is actually the most practical and useful takeaway for AI systems builders out of this Apple paper. Basically, there are definitely going to be applications where you want no inference time and you want minimal tool use because those add expense and they add time. And in cases where you don't have a lot of time and expense to burn, you kind of need your models to perform well without those things. So as an example, a customer service bot on the phone, low latency is of the essence. You can't burn a minute and a half of thinking time. It doesn't work. If you're flagging fraud on a transaction, you have very, very little time to make the fraud decision after the card is submitted. So does this matter? It absolutely does matter in that sense. There will be times when LLMs need to be able to make good decisions, and they won't have tool use and they won't have inference. And the Apple paper squarely applies. In those situations, you want the LLM to know when to call for help, just like the game show. You want them to know now is the time to get a bigger model involved and then gracefully handle the continuation. Maybe that looks like the customer service chatbot keeping the customer on the phone for a second with an innocuous question while the LLM reasons in the background. Maybe that looks like the transaction saying, it's taking a little longer than usual and spinning the disk a bit. There are lots of ways to be graceful about this. But the key insight is that right now, LLMs don't have a super standard, understood, accepted framework for calling for help when they run into difficult situations. And if we want multi-agent systems to succeed, we need to have trigger points that we all understand how to implement, a defined framework, if you will, for trigger points so that we understand when an LLM hits a certain complexity threshold, and it is very unlikely to succeed given the parameters of that model, given the testing done on that model, given the latency requirements, given the lack of tools, given the lack of inference time, then we go and ask for help. And right now,
and by way of example, I've shown this before. Here it is again. In the morning show, I do the news. I take the news articles and I use this prompt here along with the URLs in order to generate what ends up being put onto the Substack. And one of the challenges was because LLMs are trained to provide you with an answer, right? Like this is one of the places where hallucinations come in and also sycophancy. What up, Dojo? The AI attempting to provide you with an answer can cause problems, right? And that's not what I want. So it was a matter of using Gemini to create in the prompt that it needed to verify that the snippet it was generating was actually relevant to the article. Because what seemed to be happening was that if Gemini couldn't connect, later, Hydrant, if the LLM or if Gemini could not connect to the URL for some reason, then it would Google, right? Basically, was what it seemed to be doing. And then it would give me something from that website, but not the article that I was trying to get, and not even a different version of the article from a different website. It was going to the website and apparently like taking something related to AI off the front page. That seemed to be what was happening. So this whole section here, step 7, is just about that, right? And about like be particularly rigorous if there's any doubt whatsoever, right? And then it's got a note that it's unable to access or verify the content for the URL. Consider providing text directly, right? Like this is what it took, right? Like it was working with the LLM in order to get there. And this is a kind of call for help, right? On behalf of the chatbot, right? Like it needed to not attempt to provide me with an answer. It needed to know what it needed to do under those conditions. And it had to be like super descriptive, right? Like all this. And even this bit down here. Crucially, you capital must process the list of URLs below and generate the categorized summary and links or the verification notes. Like there's a process to it, but this is what it takes to do a good prompt, right? It's not just, type out a sentence and there you go. Like you should be working with the LLM to provide you with a prompt that you then use in another iteration of the LLM or another LLM altogether. So I am not surprised that under the very specific conditions that Apple set up, that it was unable to do something. You know what I mean?
Now I feel like a lot of that is being done.
Yeah, one of the hardest things for humans is asking for help, right?
On sort of a best effort basis by teams designing systems. And I would love it if we as a community came together to actually work on some systems thinking around when it makes sense to have a lifeline, to call for help, not necessarily even to a human, to a smarter model, a model with Python, a model with inference
For that,
time,
Larry.
a model that can figure out the problem. Because I will tell you, if you give the same problems, the Tower of Hanoi, the river crossing, if you give the checkers problems to models that have tools and inference time and internet access, they can solve them. Just like if you give graduate students more tools, they can solve better problems. We humans are tool users, and it's actually not a surprise. It's very well known that LLMs, sort of like humans, do better with tool use. So when you have a task that is more expensive, if we have a defined framework for that, you can go get the expensive model to solve the hard edge case. Imagine a world where the low latency tiny model can answer 98% of customer queries, and then 2% of the time, it has to go call upstairs to the smart model and have the smart model sort it out. We need a framework so that we all understand what the triggers are for calling upstairs for help. And I think that is one of the most applicable takeaways. I do not think it is helpful to run around saying that reasoning doesn't work. Oh my gosh. In fact, I think the entire thing probably needs to be rerun with tool use. It needs to be rerun with internet access. It needs to be rerun with more advanced models. It needs to be rerun with inference time. It needs to be rerun with the reasoning trace framework that Anthropic released. And if someone says, hey, that's pretty expensive, my answer is, hey, Apple's sitting on a lot of cash. They can afford to do this test if they really care about it. And I actually think that if AI is going to be transformative to society, it's probably worth budgeting for a little bit of experimentation to understand how these models reason, because it's pretty hard to solve for alignment with these models if we can't figure out how they reason. So,
I don't have any evidence for this. This is idle speculation, tinfoil hat, right? Apple is currently having some problems with its Apple Intelligence. I wonder if this is to slow down the people who are, or the companies that are at the, their investment, right? That are farther along than Apple is. You know what I mean? So Dojo, you're on the same time, right? Like that feels like it could be the intentionality behind releasing the paper. I wonder if he has the same problem, or if it has the same problem as the last paper, where the text questions all get significantly better results just by prefixing each prompt with, hey, this is a trick question. Possibly, right? And this is why, when a new paper comes out, it's interesting. Right? And we should look at the new paper. We should take the new paper seriously. And then we should, on one hand, attempt to replicate that paper. And on the other hand, do additional work in the spaces around that paper in order to expand on what that paper is saying. We're not doing that for some reason. And you know what the reason is. Because AI is bad, and any chance to dunk on it, that's Pharaoh.
So to me, this feels like money well spent. And so I don't mind that they produce the paper. I certainly don't want to attack them. I think more work in this area is better. I think there's practical takeaways, and I think the internet lost its gosh darn mind. It needs to settle down. That's my take.
This chart explains your life in more.
Okay. I feel like this is, where's my mouse? Yeah, it's this dipshit. But I'm interested in what he's got to say on this one. So we've watched we've watched a couple videos by this person. Their takes are mid. They haven't been good, but we are going to look at it because it uses as part of its thing the graph. Right? This is when I say the graph. This is actually a different version of the graph than I have seen. The graph that I usually refer to looks far more dramatic than this one, right? The graph. Right? This being the graph, that in the early 1970s, wages and productivity decoupled. Prior to that, they were in line with each other going back to like 1948. And it's not just all the graphs tend to look relatively the same. Now you can increase the, potential severity by using different on the y-axis, right? Different numbers on the y-axis. You could potentially make it more dramatic. But this is the graph, and that's why I want to watch this video. From the top.
This chart explains your life in more ways than you can possibly imagine, because AI was supposed to enhance your job, and instead, it's being used to squeeze every drop of labor out of you for the same paycheck.
He has not stopped working for a second. At 12:45, he sneezed while keeping his eyes open.
So this line is productivity, how much dollar value the average human produces and how much that has grown over time. Now, it should be bound to grow a lot more with AI now, right? But there's another line, and there's a problem because this is how much we are getting paid for that production. Now that was, of course, America's chart. And America's chart is a little different from everybody else's. This is Canada, this is the UK, this is Germany, Spain. In so many developed countries, there are those crucial moments that seem to be breaking those charts and decoupling productivity with earnings. And what is AI going to do for this? It could be this unique opportunity to close the gap. But instead of saving your job, AI is making your boss richer. It's capitalizing on your time, your health, and your sanity. Now, I've been digging through the causes, through the origins of these breaks, understanding these charts and what created these gaps in the first place, to see if there's any chance that we can leverage AI to bring these closer together. Now, here's a crazy story that I honestly had a hard time believing. In 1913, Henry Ford installed the first moving assembly line in one of his plants. Now, manufacturing time gets cut from 12 hours per car to 1 hour and 33 minutes, the very definition of disrupting productivity. And Ford decides to reward his plant workers by doubling their
What up, 750? What is your little problem?
salary. The end. Wait, hold on. Let's unpack this. Now, Ford's plants work.
I have no idea. If I got locked out of Windows OS, I would probably do a fresh install.
Could build a car in 1/8 of the time after this. So should they now be paid 8 times more? That would be a bit naive, of course, because the cost of making a car is not 1/8 of what it used to be. It's just the labor section that got reduced. But other people would argue that they're doing the same amount of work, the same type of work, the same amount of hours as before, then why would you need to pay them more? I'm sure many managers today would be on that boat. But why did Henry Ford give them a raise? Was it altruism? Or was it a business calculation? Well, it's kind of a cycle. A new technology boosts productivity, makes everything more profitable, and in Ford's story, that meant salary raises. Better salaries mean more productive employees, less turnover, which
750. I have no idea. You're talking about Linux, which is way outside my my wheelhouse, and I don't have an answer. If any of the Linux people want to answer your question, they might be able to, but I don't. I really don't. I don't do Linux.
Which was kind of becoming.
And like, I understand the advantages of Linux. I'm clear, right? But this is an example of why I don't do Linux. I just, you know what I like about Windows is, like, very little is kept on my computer, right? Everything is in the cloud somewhere. And I just, if I run into a problem, it's a fresh install of Windows, and then I just have to, you know, fix all my features and shit like that. This is, like, I am on that convenience side of the convenience, knowledge, convenience, security, whatever aspect of it all.
A problem for Ford back then. But also, these better paid employees can now buy the cars that the company makes, which means more profits for the company. Not to mention the company's reputation improves. They have happier employees and people therefore buy more stuff from their brand. So, altruism or just business calculation? I think it's honestly perfectly fair to say both. And
no, it's not both. It was a business calculation. If you actually look at the things that Henry Ford said, it was a business calculation. He told you. He said it, right? You don't have to speculate. You can just do what the thing is. You can just listen to Henry Ford. Like, he'll tell you. Henry Ford was not altruist.
More crucially, both Ford and his employees benefited from this. He got the bigger cut, but he's the founder, right? So was the 2x increase fair?
And that should tell you everything you need to know about this dude, right? He should get the bigger cut because he's the founder. So you're down with, neoliberal economic policies. You can feel however you want to feel about that. Like, I am not judging that people have, and this individual appears to have, neoliberal economic policies on the mind. That is a choice you can make, right? What I'm saying is you should understand who is telling you what. And now we know another feature of this person's thinking.
Should it be more? Should it be less? We can argue all day about that, but this chart proves that there was some fairness to how things were working back then, up until this point, which I'm gonna get to. Now, were the bosses nicer back then? Was it some rule or some tax? Was it the market? I think all of them. Like, there's no one law that...
No. My God. Ooh. I'm gonna let him talk. I feel like most of you, what up, Samson? I feel like most of you already understand what's going on, so I don't need it. Jesus Christ.
Forces you to peg profits to salaries, but there are protections, and a lot of those protections got put up in place after the Great Depression. In the US, for example, the most important one came in 1938 with the Fair Labor Standards Act. This is the law that set a federal minimum wage, established...
Right. Federal regulation would definitely indicate that it wasn't that the bosses were nicer back then, right? Like, that's not how that works. The federal regulation is... It's the law, right? Like, you have to do this or you will get your company in trouble.
The 40-hour work week and required overtime pay if you went over that. This helped produce a golden age of optimism, good wages, good spending, good economy, a baby boom, and economy growth. So what the fuck happened here? And more critically, what will AI do to this gap? Okay, so now let's make sure that we are on the same page about what this chart means. This is an index of how much value, US dollar value, of goods and services each worker is creating for the economy. And there is a boost here, you can see it from post-war technology, highways, trucks, infrastructure. There's another boost around here from computers. That's a very visible bump in the late 90s. And then there's a slump right around here, which I'm gonna get to. But the whole thesis of AI is that now we
This motherfucker didn't know how to read a graph, dude.
can do more, right? That's because now we have our chatbots and our little AI-powered SaaS tools.
ClickUp AI Note Taker.
Asana AI.
AI optimized. Notion AI.
Slack AI.
Conversational AI.
AI-powered search engine.
Just like in Ford Cycle, AI could suddenly become this kickstart of a new cycle of prosperity. Because we trust our employees to use AI this way, right? Yeah, no, of course not. I'm an employer and I don't trust myself to do that. There isn't a single...
He's a small business owner.
protection in place today that shields workers from how AI can change their work. And the reason why has to do with that slump I mentioned earlier. Now, this is the percentage version of the same chart that I showed you earlier. Same idea.
Right, like from here to here, it's, you know, understanding the deviation that appears in a graph of this kind, it's basically like a straight line. And then from this point, it goes up, right? This is a change of angle, right? Like this is a bump and this is a bump. But for the most part, you have two angles, one from here to here, and then one from here to here. Because I can read a graph because my eyes work.
But instead of seeing the value in dollars of our productivity, we're seeing the accumulated growth of that number. And then there's this other line. It's the accumulated growth in salaries adjusted for living costs. Again, employees are more productive, but those benefits.
And an interesting thing when you look at this graph is the feature similarity between the two. This bump here, this little bump here, this little fella, is matched down here. This little bump down here, matched down here. This little bump here, matched up here. Matched is doing some heavy lifting, I understand. But I wonder why this little bump happened and there wasn't a little bump down here. This is kind of flat, right? It does go up, but it's, you know.
Benefits are not trickling down to them, and this mess seems to...
It is COVID. Yeah, no, COVID is the other, the bigger bump at the end. Right? Because this right here is COVID.
Trickling down to them, and this mess seems to start right around the 70s.
I'm sorry.
Now, if we this other line. Now, this is the percentage version of the...
He said trickling down. I need to go back.
Same chart that I showed you earlier. Same idea, but instead of seeing the value in dollars of our productivity, we're seeing the accumulated growth of that number. And then there's this other line. It's the accumulated growth in salaries adjusted for living costs. Again, employees are more productive, but those benefits are not trickling down to them.
Correct.
This mess seems to start right around the 70s. Now, if we add an unemployment line to this chart, we can start to see...
Maybe Samson's. Is that a reason? Is that why there might be a bump in that one line and not the other?
Kind of where this mess originated. And it all has to do with power, where specifically your boss's power. Now, if I think individually, AI has made my individual work incredibly more efficient. The problem is that it's given companies an unbalanced amount of power over their teams. And I'm gonna get to this in a sec. But one key learning tool that I've been using to just improve the way I...
Nope.
Below. Now, let's go back in time on that chart we were using. Because the 70s were this brutal decade. Two oil crises. Stagflation, which is inflation's nastier, meaner cousin. And this crisis meant that everybody had to tighten their belts, right? It means that everybody has to work a little harder, right? Because otherwise you risk losing your job. And don't get me wrong, I run a tech company. This channel is really just our side hustle, in case you didn't know. But tight belts are the norm for tech startups. The whole premise of a startup is that you work harder, you have to work harder to beat the competition. And if you sign up for one, you're kind of expected to play by those rules. But I'm gonna get back to this in a sec. But most people don't work for startups, and definitely not in the 70s. Now, in this decade, the minimum wage lost 25% of its value. A lot of standardized salaries were lost. The percentage of private workers in a union started a clear decline. Percentage of private workers in a union.
I wonder if this has anything to do with anything.
Started a clear decline. Airlines, trucks, and telecom, they all got deregulated. And the crisis hit everyone, but employees came out much weaker, and employers came out stronger than ever. And that chart might not have been obvious in the 90s what was gonna happen, but it's hard to argue against something that happened in that decade. And on top of removed worker protections, two laws, I believe, had a profound impact in all of this. So first, in 1982, SEC Rule 10b-18 made it so much easier for companies to buy back shares. It was a lot harder back then, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of hoops, a lot of regulation you had to go through to buy back shares for a company. So this pool of profits.
It would probably be painfully obvious, Samson, if you asked an LLM, right? Like if you use the AI to help you understand the graph.
That companies had often got reinvested. And a lot of that reinvestment ended up in their employees' pockets. But now you could easily convert this into shareholder value. And you could pay it in dividends, but companies figured out that stock buybacks could be so much more profitable because America is so obsessed with the stock market. We made a whole video about that. Buybacks are so—
Michael, did you preload that for some reason? Oh, you blocked it. Okay.
so good for a company's stock performance that companies now go and borrow money to buy back stock. And in 1997, buybacks surpassed dividends as the dominant way US firms return cash to shareholders. Who wants profits when you have Wall Street? And second, because of tax breaks. Tax breaks that disproportionately benefited the higher income tiers. This idea of reducing taxes during a recession makes a lot of sense. And it must have been easy to get support for this law, but who really stood to benefit from these new rules were the richest tiers. If you made the 1979 equivalent of $200,000 a year.
According to a certain economic model, it makes sense to reduce taxes during a recession. According to other economic models, what you need to do as the government is to increase spending, right? By increasing spending, you get more money down to the ease my quant. You get more money down to the people who spend the money, right? And then that in turn kickstarts the economy. Keynesian, I believe.
As an individual, income above $200,000 would be taxed at 55%. Today, that individual would pay just 32%. Income above $600,000 used to be taxed at 70%. But now, well, suddenly your boss sees this very direct extra percentage benefit for keeping that raise for themselves versus making it trickle down for the rest of the company. And this reduced—
He keeps saying
tax revenue not only widens the productivity gap, but also the income gap. And that break, by the way, didn't happen in Europe. And compensation versus productivity remained closely pegged for many more years. Now, there's a very complex mix of reasons for that. It'd take us multiple videos to cover it. But the point is that whatever combination of things happened in the US in the 70s made worker benefits take a turn for the worse. And so this kind of gives us a new cycle, right? Crisis triggers a productivity boost from employees. Not that they're more productive, they're just probably spending more hours. But if there's a crisis out there, you put the extra effort, you don't want to lose your job. So productivity increases, potentially with a smaller team. Employers can see the benefits of that extra profit eventually. But because we're in a crisis, there's no need to change salaries, there's no power to the employees to renegotiate because we're in a crisis. But surely a crisis doesn't last forever, right? It's only temporary. right?
The job prospects for recent graduates are down significantly.
Okay. That is the first inkling of a thing that actually like made sense in this video. The idea of perpetual crisis, which is the lead up to this portion.
Significantly from a year ago.
The unemployment rate for recent grads reached 5.8% in March.
Nearly 1 in 4 Americans are considered functionally unemployed.
Now, the thing is, companies have gotten really good at extending those temporary measures, either because they bridge their narrative to a new crisis or with this idea of productivity gospel. This idea of the 10x engineer, the mythical programmer 10 times as productive as a normal one.
Stallions. Each one more magnificent than the last.
The business hero of this ultra-productive, always busy executive answering emails at 10 p.m. or working through weekends.
No one has ever changed the world by working only 40 hours a week.
These big tech offices are designed so that you build...
Literally. Literally, the working class has changed the world at working 40 hours a week. You dumb shit.
Your life inside them in the end so that you don't really leave work. And this is rewarded behavior today in the workplace. But when you bring AI into the mix, it creates a perfect storm. So the tech world seems to agree that today there are two very obvious, very powerful uses for large language models in the workplace that can actually replace a lot of what people do or used to do. One is customer support. All around customer support, customer success, low tiers, sales rep interactions. And two, it's coding.
GitHub Copilot is an AI pair programmer that we built to help.
Copilot, any person can now build software in any human language.
Okay, let's give Quad Code some context about the event so it can make the right implementation decisions.
Codex actually helped me begin the integration of Codex on the ChatGPT iOS app.
And so let's combine this with the reality of today's workplaces. Let's say big tech, for example. Venture funding dried out post-COVID, right? We have this imminent bubble, we have the economy, we have tariffs. As many as 500,000 tech workers were laid off in 2023, 2024.
Meta closing down Bay Area offices and thousands of tech layoffs.
Amazon has reportedly cut about 27,000 jobs since 2022.
Microsoft eliminating 300 more jobs just weeks after cutting
Hold on. I don't necessarily agree with your priors, my guy.
And so let's combine this with the reality of today's workplaces. Let's say big tech, for example. Venture funding dried out post-COVID, right?
One of the things I'm hearing, the reason why I'm hearing that there's an AI bubble is that that's where all the venture funding went to, right? Venture capital, VCs, all over the place related to AI. So I don't accept your prior that venture capital dried up in tech post-COVID. Also, there is no such thing as post-COVID. COVID is an ongoing, and even if you don't like, whatever, right? Like, what happened was that COVID went from a pandemic to being endemic. It didn't stop, it didn't go away, right?
We have this imminent bubble, we have the...
What imminent bubble? Show me the bubble. How can there also be a bubble without the funding?
The economy, we have tariffs. As many as 500,000 tech workers were laid off in 2023, 2024.
Meta closing down Bay Area offices and thousands of tech layoffs.
Amazon has reportedly cut about 27,000 jobs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Dojo, and that was a thing that, what's his name? Biden, that guy, his CFPB, that's right. They had a thing where you could only charge so much in credit card interest rates. And the other guy, I don't know, fuck all. They got rid of it, and they got rid of, basically they neutered the CFPB. And making stock buybacks illegal again?
Since 2022.
Microsoft eliminating 300 more jobs just weeks after cutting thousands.
There's your crisis. Now, those who remain need to work a little harder, right? They need to be more productive. No salary changes, obviously, because we're in a crisis. And then AI comes into the mix. But in this cycle, AI is not a tool to make your life easier. It's another whip. It's less power to the employee.
I recommend being in the office at least every weekday. 60 hours a week is the sweet spot of productivity.
Now that's an extract of an email from Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google, sent to the Google AI team earlier this year. Google is in a bit of a crisis too. LLM competitors are creeping out on their turf for the first time in decades. But where's the overtime pay? Where is the work-life balance at 60 plus hours per week? Google is not a startup anymore, but they can get away with this new policy that applies to tens of thousands of engineers. A 2024 survey by DHR Global found that 8 in 10 white-collar workers felt burnt out. These are the workers who should be reaping the benefits of all this AI tools and automation. Callouts of the word burnout on Glassdoor reviews are on an all-time high. Where is the promised paradise of AI productivity? Well, people are producing more, but somebody else is taking the benefit. AI is not here for your
What up, Maddie? Yeah, no, dude, it's you, right? Mr. Boss, Mr. Business Owner, Mr. Capitalist, Mr. Neocon, Neoliberal. It's you. You are part of the problem. Tell me more about how the problem is actually the AI.
your job yet. It's here to take your raise, and the guardrails to protect workers from this have long been gone.
True,
That
Maddie.
is what we need. Guardrails against
Joint
overworking
Specialist?
teams. Guardrails so that no matter your salary, your position, your fancy office perks, the
Oh, so you're going to come out in favor of unions now, right? Because that's how you get all those things, is strong unions, strong protections, strong union protections, the strong National Labor Board, that you're about to come out in favor of all those things, right?
expected work week is 40 hours, not 60. I'm not against progress. I'm not even against AI. Like, I actually love how AI tools make me much more productive. This technology is here, and pretending that it doesn't exist is not a solution. So I attended this tech startup conference last week, and every single speaker, every startup founder is talking about AI either in how they're implementing it into their products or into their operations, their processes, their teams. I don't think it's an evil AI takeover, because I think in practice, the new rules are very simple. Just don't hire new people as you normally would. First, see if there's a way you can make your existing team more productive, automate stuff, extract more value out of them. This is a basic, a good and extract more value out of them. This is a basic, a good and
Please continue.
fair business practice as long as the guardrails are there. We can't pretend that AI is as long as the guardrails are there as you normally would. First, see if there's a way you can make your existing team more productive, automate stuff, extract more value out of them. This is a basic, a good and fair business practice as long as the guardrails are there. We can't pretend that AI tools aren't here. We need to use them. I think we need to leverage them, but a broader change, much broader change is needed to understand that laying off people and then consolidating everything into a single 80+ hour worker is not a reasonable path to the future, not to the company, nor to the world. Now, when you're starting
What you do is you bring in that worker and you extract that 80+ hours of work out of them, right? And then they get burnt out. And the ones that can keep that up for, whatever, then great. But if they can't and they burn out and they fail out and they drop out and they quit and they do whatever, well, then you just call up one of the reserve army of labor and slot them into that job, and you churn them up, get that 80 hours, and then once they're done, discard them, right? I'll see what I can do, Maddie. My company has about 5% of the employees needed to take a leave of absence due to burnout. Private equity firms are evil. They come in, buy companies, lay off workers, and force employees to work until they're exhausted. Exactly. They're doing they're extracting as much as they can over the short term, right? Like when you buy a restaurant, like what happened with Red Lobster. You buy the restaurant, you sell a portion of it to, like, in the case of Red Lobster, they sold a portion of it to a shrimp company. So all that shrimp company, they knew they had a guaranteed client, and then they had them do the unlimited shrimp thing. So they knew they could just funnel all this shrimp through that client. Then what you do is you sell all of the land under the buildings to another entity, and then you use that entity to extract rents out of the company, and you're just extracting all this. And in the meantime, you're also, you're extracting all the energy out of the the employees. And then once it reaches that culmination, that inflection point, then you declare banco and go on to the next one.
Company, there is no way around a 12-hour workday. I think that's what you sign up for as a founder. You have to catch up to your competition. You have no money. That's how it is. And our company would not be here if many people in our team hadn't pulled a fair share of all-nighters. Startups are painful, but companies can't pretend to be startups forever, especially when managers exert power over hundreds or maybe thousands of people. As founders or as business operators, we just can't trust ourselves to be the ones closing the gap in these charts. That 80s revolution, that idea to leave the worker salaries to the forces of the market, has just backfired again and again, year over year. And we are headed towards this future where half of the people aren't needed because the other half are just using AI to do twice their work. But we can do better. France, Belgium, Ireland, Germany, Australia, all these countries have implemented right to disconnect protections for any company over 50 employees. South Korea capped its max work week at 52 hours, including overtime. Now, these are the protections that help keep these charts in balance. In the US, these protections don't exist. They're left to the companies to decide, to the market, and then they become benefits, right? Benefits that the company decides if they give them to you or not, which, even if you're getting them, kind of leaves the company with that extra power to suddenly demand more of you because they're giving you these things.
Yes, yeah, as long as you put it in context, right? Like what I don't want for people to do is idealize all aspects of those time periods, because you were also at risk, a greater risk of like boom and bust cycles, right? Like not in the capitalist sense, but like, you get a drought or, you get some sort of fungus or whatever, and it can kill off a majority of the food that would normally have been available under those conditions, whether it was, during the, the era of serfs and whatnot, or also the hunter-gatherers, right? Like if all of a sudden, a river changes its direction, now you don't have access to the same resources you did a year ago, and then vast quantities of people can suffer and die. Yeah, the old trope of Middle Ages workers had more days off. Yeah.
Employee protection should be the law, much more now than ever. We no longer live in a world where Henry Ford would double the salaries of all of his employees thanks to this new innovation that we just came up with.
He was doubling the salaries of his workers so they could afford to buy his product, and so that like they wouldn't leave and go someplace else, right? Like it was self-serving.
Fords of today are laying off staff, piling up more work on.
Is it true, Manny? I don't think I've ever looked at the history of the wheelbarrow, but it's fucking disappointing.
On top of the remaining ones, and just using AI to manage the load. We don't need to fear the AI tools themselves. We need to fear the companies that use this revolution to just squeeze us dry. Now, if you enjoy this video, you should watch our episode on how tech billionaires are also using.
No. See, this is the point in the video where you do a call to action, and you did none of that. right? You endorsed neoliberal policies at the beginning. You introduced yourself as a small business owner. You used trickle down twice, and I'm not sure why. And you think it's okay and fair to extract as much out of your employees as you can, as long as there's some federal regulations to prevent over extraction and that kind of thing. But like, now what, big guy? Okay, so the next no, I believe you. Like, that's the thing, Maddie. In certain contexts, I will absolutely defer to your advanced knowledge. So Ed Zitron, my buddy, my friend, my pal, Ed Zitron has a little podcast. I mean, did he? I don't recall an explicit. Ed Zitron is a little podcast, and in this podcast, this is a short snippet, right? This isn't actually the podcast itself. This is like 5 minutes of Ed Zitron talking. And he's saying that the AI job losses that this individual referred to in their video, and multiple other indicators have said that there is, job losses due to AI. He's saying that it's not true. He's saying that it's a con. Let's listen to Ed Zitron, shall we?
He's the CEO of Anthropic, and he repeated this egregious lie to both.
Now, this is do you remember when they were talking about needing a Joe Rogan of the left, right? That is what the energy that Ed Zitron brings to the table, right? Like the fact that he likes to call Dario Amodei Wario. It's big Trump energy, right? I call him Tim Apple, right? Like that kind of shit. Continue, Ed. I'm sorry I interrupted on your 5-minute video.
Axios and CNN, leading to the most of the rest of the media just quoting it ad verbatim without thinking. Now, to be specific, he said that AI would wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to...
It was could. It was AI could, right? It's an important distinction. Could and would are different words with different implications. But when you're lying to people, it doesn't matter. Right, Ed?
10 to 20 researcher evidence to that 50% estimate. And she added that Amodei is a salesman, and it's in his interest to make his product appear to be inevitable and so powerful, it's scary. And
this is true. It doesn't change the facts, but it is true, right? A CEO is is part salesman, part PR guy. Also, I'm confident that this skull was made with AI because of the way the right ocular fucking whatever it is all janky, and the left one doesn't look like what I would assume a human. See, I can do this better than they can.
little of what Amodei told Axios was new, but it was calibrated to sound just outrageous enough to draw attention to
economics. Now, known economist Ed Zitron is going... I'm sorry, what? Oh. He's a PR guy. Ed Zitron is not an economist. He's a PR guy. Okay.
Causing Axios to run an article claiming that there was now hard evidence that AI was driving job loss. I should also add Kevin Roos, you know, the marketing intern that also runs a New York Times column.
It is bizarre to me that over the course of this stream, not today, but the whole thing, that I have gone from talking shit about Kevin Roos for freaking out over the AI saying that it loved him, to being like, to actually intaking new information and be, you know, and updating his world model. and and Ed Zitron referring to him as a marketing intern. Ed Zitron.
He just quoted that verbatim. Like that's the exact quote he used in a story in the New York Times. Didn't even bother opening the fucking thing. Now, one might think anyway that the report would have, like, I don't know, hard evidence based on what Axios said, and you'd be wrong. On the very first page, it says that there are signs that entry-level positions are being, or whether one can actually replace any of these roles with AI. Post the report. Done. Sold. Go home. Smoke a cigarette. You did it, champ. You put out your fucking report. Even if the report's bullshit, actually, the rest of the report's pretty good. It's just this weird bit.
The rest of the report's pretty good. The part that I disagree with is shit, but the rest of the report is actually pretty good. Fascinating.
Sure, they just did.
Note.
A company that has actually replaced full employees with generative AI.
Full employees with generative AI. It's a very specific kind of thing. When I told you that the most likely outcome would be AI, probably generative AI, doing certain tasks, and then the elimination of employees because you need less employees to do the task, right? That is, but if you ask for something that no one can provide you, then you're not wrong. This is the key. Carry on, Ed, please. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Show me the job that the AI is doing and how it is doing it, and then the output that it creates. Do not bring me a goddamn call center. I swear to Christ, they've been...
And show me all these things, you know, which are obviously proprietary and no one is going to show you, Ed. So, again, you can pretend that you know what the hell you're talking about. And then discount the call center because you already know that would invalidate the argument that you just made. And go ahead and give me a straw man, right? And this is the framing of the situation as I have the secret knowledge that they don't want you to know. Right? I'm brave enough. This is Alex Jones energy. This is what you do as a grifter in order to grift your people. I know what I'm talking about. I've got the secret knowledge. I'm going to bring it to you, and only I have that secret knowledge. So you listen to me. Is it, Reed?
And my next episode is going to be a 3-parter about why I think this keeps happening.
Very good. Nicely done, Ed. Nicely done. Get fucked. Get off my screen. Hey, I'm a leftist. Here's a Democracy Now.
Democracy depends on...
Hold on, Amy.
But I do believe you've dropped your wallet. Doesn't look familiar to me. What? I just saw you drop it. Here. Nope, it's not mine. It is yours. I am trying to be a good person and return it to you. Return what to who? Aren't you Patrick Starr? Yep. And this is your ID? Yep. I found this ID in this wallet. And if that's the case, this must be your wallet. That makes sense to me. Then take it. It's not my wallet.
This pivot to AI channel is just another dude who's decided to grift people on the, the anti-AI bit. Democracy Now! Amy, go.
A free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We turn now to the empire of AI. That's the name of a new book by the journalist Karen Hao, who's closely reported on the rise of the artificial intelligence industry with a focus on Sam Altman's OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. Karen Hao compares the actions of the AI industry to those of colonial powers in the past. She writes, quote, "The empires of AI are not engaged in the same overt violence and brutality that marked this history, but But they too seize and extract precious resources to feed their vision of artificial intelligence. The work of artists and writers, the data of countless individuals posting about their experiences and observations online, the land, energy, and water required to house and run massive data centers and supercomputers, she writes. Karen Howe's book comes at a time when Republican Congress members are trying to block states from regulating AI. The House recently passed Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Budget Bill that contains a provision that would prohibit any state-level regulations of AI for the next decade, in a major gift to the AI industry. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has criticized the provision, even though she voted.
I would like to point out that Dario Amodei, I call him Wario, came out against that provision in the bill. Because facts are inconvenient. Oh God, I have craziest AI Twitch story. Yesterday, the VLDL guys were playing on Twitch, then raided into one streamer playing their brand new video game. That streamer then declared to be an AI streamer, a toaster. That video game is about sentient AI NPCs in a video game where the VLDL guys play those characters in their skits. Of course I have to read it out loud because it was funny. And like how much, like I'm getting more commentary because of Thunderbolts on how much I look like the Red Guardian, especially when I go hat off. So I should have leaned into it more, you know what I mean? For Halloween one year I wore a Red Guardian costume here on stream. It's like you don't even know me.
Voted for the bill. She wrote online, quote, "Full transparency, I did not know about this section. I'm adamantly opposed."
Here, let me be fair. I just realized. And because I want the party to be more like a real party.
to this, and it's a violation of state rights, and I would have voted no if I had known this was in there. She says she won't vote for it if it remains in there after the Senate votes. To talk about this and much more, we're joined by the journalist Karen Howe, whose new book, again, is just out, Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares, and Sam Altman's OpenAI, former reporter at the Wall Street Journal and MIT Technology Review. She leads the Pulitzer Center's AI Spotlight Series program for training journalists.
I've said before, right? I said before that if the beard is the disguise. Because if I shave the beard, I could fucking disappear into the woodwork and y'all would never recognize me.
On how to cover AI. You should train everyone on how to understand AI, Karen. It's an amazing book. Why don't you start by talking about the title, what exactly you mean? For a lay audience, I suspect a lot of our audience are Luddites, so you really have to explain what artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence is.
So AI is a collection of many different technologies, but most people were introduced to it through ChatGPT.
Right.
And what I argue in the book, and what the title refers to, Empire of AI, it's actually a critique of the specific trajectory of AI development that led us to ChatGPT and has continued since ChatGPT. And that is specifically Silicon Valley's scale at all costs approach to AI development. AI models in modern day, they are trained on data. They need computers to train them on that data. But what Silicon Valley did and what OpenAI did in the last few years is they started blowing up the amount of data and the size of the computers that need to do this training. So we are talking about the full English language internet being fed into these models, books, scientific articles, all of the intellectual property that is being created.
Like, yes, with the full language internet thing, but like, or English language internet thing, but like, also, like, I feel like people misunderstand that, in that they think that they just took Reddit, they just took 4chan and stuck it in there. Yes. Well, like, before I reply, I just want to back it up to see exactly what it is that you're referring to, Touristic.
The amount of data and the size of the computers that need to do this training. So we
No, she's referring to the data centers, right? The humans who were, and I assume still are, being paid like $2 an hour in Kenya and, you know, very low wages in other places, and are also subjected to some relatively inhuman conditions based on being exposed to the American internet without getting the counseling that they were supposed to get and they were contractually obligated to get. That has to do with labeling data, right? That is, going back to the thing I was just talking about, is they don't take 4chan and stick it in there, right? Like they eliminate a lot of that stuff, and the way that they do it is it's not like gone. They don't just go through and click on stuff, okay, delete that, delete that, delete that. They label it all so that the AIs that they use as a precursor see the labeling, and they know if they see that particular piece of data again in the future, they've already identified it by that label. They are working on AIs that can function without labeling to identify that data and images to prevent that from happening in the future. However, it hasn't happened yet. And that's terrible. That shouldn't be happening. This is a capitalism problem. Capitalism does that in all of its facets, right? The very thing of the whole Trump bring your manufacturing back here was because prior to that, companies were exporting their, their factories or their production, not necessarily the factories, but their production to countries with lower wages and less worker protections in order to save money. That's a function of capitalism. Absolutely, tourist. It's like a lot of people have ideas. They have what they've heard, right? And it's usually got like some truth in it and then some extrapolation depending on who's giving them that information. I do it where, like, I can provide you with the data to back up the things that I say because I feel that that's important. I don't want you to just listen to me. I want you to be able to look at the same data that I do and either agree with me based on your own verification or disagree with me and show me where I was wrong, because I want to be correct. I don't want to be right. I want to be correct. It's important.
We're talking about the full English language internet being fed into these models.
Yeah, that was builder.ai, Maddie. And basically you would enter some code or some shit into the thing, and the AI would do some work, and then they would send it to the, to the companies in India, who would then have people banging on the code in order to make it work properly. My concern is that people are going to use that as like an example of the normal functioning of these AI coding machines like Windsurf and Cursor, and that's not how they function, because that shit is happening in real time, right? There's not enough time for that to happen, and there was a misunderstanding brought about the thing that I talked about a minute ago with these people labeling data in the global south, that people thought AI, the chatbots, were actually other people. And so you would type a query into the chatbot, and whatever output you got was someone typing that to you, right? And there's like, that's a misunderstanding of what actually was going on, you know, with that labeling section. And also people anthropomorphizing the response to the point where they have to insert a human being in there in order for this world to make sense to them, right? But then people ran with it. People, you know, this is the problem. It's all about getting rid of the misinformation to understand what's actually happening so that you can do actual critiques of the actual shit and, you know, so on and so forth. AI needs training data. It's not really controversial that a company will hire people to do the work that AI needs to be trained on. Correct. Over time, the AI takes over more of that workload. Also correct. What's controversial, a word I hate, is that you're not paying people appropriately for the work that they put in. And again, that's a problem with capitalism. It literally exists in every single industry. The dude from the video 2 videos ago openly admitted that he thinks that extracting as much as you can out of your employees is a fair business practice.
Models, books, scientific articles, all of the intellectual property that is being created, and also massive supercomputers that run tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of computer chips that are the size of dozens, maybe hundreds of football fields, and use practically the entire energy demands of cities now. So this is an extraordinary type of...
That is like a flawed extrapolation. Training an AI takes a tremendous amount of electricity. Inference, which is the most common usage of the AI that most people engage with, uses significantly less, right? It does not use 10 times or 30 times or whatever it was the amount of a Google search, right? And the energy cost per inference has cratered, right? Like it's fallen off a cliff. Training does take a lot of energy. Part of the problem is, you know, the way that computers work. They generate heat. They do all this other stuff. You need to work on efficiencies in the architecture because the technology we're using is probably not the appropriate technology for what we're trying to do with it. But it's the only one we have right now. And then there's that, right? Netflix, YouTube, we're on Twitch right now. I assume their data centers are chugging away using a bunch of electricity. YouTube using a bunch of electricity. Like there's not a lot of apples to apples comparisons, right? And people who have been here a while know the thing. Samson's, her book will probably age fine, right? There's the AI Snake Oil book, which hasn't gone away, the AI Con, which is the other book that came out relatively recently, and now the Empire of AI is going to do very well with the anti-AI, AI skeptical crowd, and they are going to buy it and use it to support their arguments, but there are certain flaws with what she is saying. Right? I'm not saying all of it, right? She seems to be the most intellectually honest of all of those people. I mean, fair enough, Samson. Maybe one day the AI overlords will, you know, trap her in the torment nexus for her sins.
AI development.
I'm tempted to read her book as well.
That is causing a lot of social, labor, and environmental harms. And that is ultimately why I evoke this analogy to empire.
And Karen, could you talk some more about not only the energy requirements, but the water requirements of these huge data centers that are in essence, the backbone of this widening industry?
Absolutely. I'll give you 2 stats on both the energy and the water. When talking about the energy demand, McKinsey recently came out with a report that said in the next 5 years, based on the current pace of AI computational infrastructure expansion, we would need to put as much energy on the global grid as what is consumed by 2 to 6 times the energy consumed annually by the state of California. And that will mostly be serviced by fossil fuels. We're already seeing reporting of coal plants.
That's a choice. That's an absolute choice. Political choices are making the import of Chinese solar panels a non-starter, right? Because of the tariffs. If we didn't do that, there would be more, more solar panels, so more renewable energy. Also, China is leading in, like, they're for the first time the thing got inverted. They're generating more electricity through renewables than they are through fossil fuels. It's a transition. It does take time. I'm absolutely with you that we fucked around way too long and that, we're at that point. Touristic, I don't disagree. The thing is, it's like, there is no point at which we can just pause the AI until we straighten out the capitalism scenario. It's going to continue, right? It's a national security issue. Ergo, the United States will continue to pump money into it because it's a national security issue. You want to change that, you have to change the government of the United States. You want to do that, there's, generally speaking, the electoral option and the other thing. We are not ready to do the other thing, and the electoral option strikes a lot of people as garbage. So that's where we're at. So we're going to keep on keeping on. How can we use these tools to the best of our ability to help us best position ourselves in the future and as we go on and in the today? What up, Bravo Snipes? Just imagine how a mixture of expert architecture will advance. Accuracy and efficiency will be off the charts. Should be. Even under some restraints, DeepSeek R1 met a lot of benchmarks. Just imagine in 5 years. Yeah, no, I expect continued improvement. Also, the thing that she said about adding to the grid, I don't know if McKinsey was referring to the world or to the United States. If it's referring to just the United States, that number sounds like a lot. And I believe Alex referred to the McKinsey report in their video.
With their lives being extended, they were supposed to retire, but now they cannot to support this data center development. We are seeing methane gas turbines, unlicensed ones, being.
That's specific to Grok, that's specific to XAI, that's specific to Elon Musk. Very specific scenario. I hope that she clarifies that.
Popped up to service these data centers as well.
No, she did not. That's a Grok scenario. That's not a everyone scenario.
Fresh water perspective.
Is this in France or Canada? Like, where's this video from? It's got to be Canada, right? Because only in Canada do they do both English and French on the signs.
These data centers need to be trained on fresh water. They cannot be trained on any other type of water because
that's untrue. They absolutely they're not being trained on fresh water. The water is a coolant, right? And they use gray water, they use filtered water. Most of the water remains in a circle, a closed loop system. It doesn't flow in from the river and course over the fucking CPUs and GPUs and then go out the other side and into the shithole where all things die, right? It's a closed loop. And then there's the chillers that exist on the roof, and then that water becomes vapor, and that vapor returns to the water system, right? It's not like they're shitting in the water, right? That's not what's happening.
It can corrode the equipment, it can lead to bacterial growth, and most of the time, it actually taps directly into a public drinking water supply, because that is the infrastructure that has been laid to deliver this clean, fresh water to different businesses, to different homes. And Bloomberg recently had an analysis where they looked at the expansion of these data centers around the world, and 2/3 of them are being placed in water scarce areas. So they're being placed in communities that do not have access to fresh water. So it's not just the total amount of fresh water that we need to be concerned about, but
and that's a huge issue, right? That's a huge issue. Why are they being placed in these water scarce areas? In the United States, and I'm only going to speak to the United States because this is where I live. So this is where my commentary is most accurate. You're talking about places like Texas, places like Arizona, places like Indiana, right? I don't know that Indiana is water scarce, right? But that's a thing. What up, Hydran? I'm sorry you couldn't sleep. But they're being placed where the ground is flat, right? And they're being placed in places where the state is permissive to business, right? So it's not just cheaper. You're right about cheaper, but it's also that it's the state governments that are creating a environment where they want to bring business in, and so they provide them with tax breaks. This is not an issue of the AI companies, again, in particular. This is an issue of the way that... One moment. Sorry about that. I thought it was important, and it was an accident. Go ahead and riot. I've seen what makes you people riot.
Actually, the distribution of this infrastructure around the world.
And most people are familiar with Chat GPT, the consumer aspect of AI. But what about the military aspect of AI, where, in essence, we're finding Silicon Valley?
That's a huge problem, right? I am not going to defend the military use of AI. Absolutely not. And, like, if you want somebody to give you a good... alternative view, right? I highly recommend this video, AI Wars from Alex Avila, where they cover a lot of the things that I'm talking about in this segment, right? Like, and that way you can use, because Alex has links. Lenny, what up, homie? Greeting from west of Boston. Alex has links in a document, and you can go and you can verify all the information and everything else.
Valley companies becoming the next generation of defense contractors.
One of the reasons why OpenAI and many other companies are turning to the defense industry is because they have spent an extraordinary amount of money in developing these technologies. They're spending hundreds of billions to train these models, and they need to recoup those costs. And there are only so many industries and so many places.
They're going to the defense industry because the defense industry gets a blank check from the U.S. government. It's not about recouping costs. It's about, like, they're looking for money for the future, and that money comes through the defense industry. Because when we talk about cutting budgets and services and all sorts of other things, the one thing that never gets brought up is the defense industry, right? That tap goes on and it stays on. It just opens wider.
places that have that size of a paycheck to pay. And so that's why we're seeing a cozying up to the defense industry. We're also seeing Silicon Valley use the U.S. government in their empire building ambitions. You could argue that the U.S. government is also trying to use Silicon Valley, vice versa, in their empire building ambitions. But certainly these technologies are not, they are not.
That seems to be, that would strike me as correct, Bravo, because what the lesson of Vietnam taught the Pentagon was that Americans are averse to the deaths of Americans, right? They don't want to see Americans dead, right? There were scrolls after the nightly news of the Americans who had died that day in a war. And Americans don't like that. Which is why what you notice in like in Iraq, in Afghanistan, you saw a lot of soldiers who were surviving their wounds, right? There's a lot more people with like prosthetics than there would have been in the past, and the casualty rates for Americans are also lower because they're trying to keep American soldiers alive. The next logical step is minimizing the amount of American soldiers who are in the field and increasing the amount of relatively disposable robots, because who gives a shit if the robot gets shot? Americans don't give a fuck about anybody else who died. They only give a fuck about Americans who died. It's important. Important to understand that.
Designed to be used in a sensitive military context. And so the aggressive push of these companies to try and get those defense contracts and integrate their technologies more and more into the infrastructure of the military is really alarming.
I wanted to go to the countries you went to, or the stories you covered. I mean, this is amazing, the depth of your reporting. From Kenya to Uruguay to Chile.
Correct,
you were talking about the use of water, and I also want to ask you about nuclear power. Yeah. But in Chile, what is happening there around these data centers and the water they would use and the resistance to that?
Yeah, so Chile has an interesting history in that it was under a dictatorship for a very long time. And so during that time...
And right before it was under the dictatorship, it had the most advanced cyber socialist program running. It was amazing, right? Even when cities were under siege, they found ways to shuttle. What the fuck is this, man? They found ways to shuttle things through where the right wing paramilitary groups weren't. Oh, it's my boy.
We are going to attack you with drones. That's fine. We're going to counter your drones with our technology. We're going to send more drones then, way more. We're going to counter your even more drones with laser beams. We're going to send our drones after your boats. You're going to send them after what? No, for the love of God, don't send them after the boats. Do not touch the United States of America's boats. We are going to attack you with drones. That's fine.
That's true.
Most public resources were privatized, including water. But because of an anomaly, there's one community in the greater San...
No, I actually have seen that. Absolutely, touristic. Understand that there's nuance, right? I understand that people are going to say things, and there is the truth. There is the facts. I like that guy's content, especially like the stuff where he says I exist out of spite. And he's very he's got rough edges, which I enjoy. That particular video can come across in a certain kind of way. But if you take it for what it is, yes, you can just look at the way that the United States does what it does, and it's accurate. Pretty sure Boston Dynamics used to have contracts with the DOE, who of course works directly with the DoD, which is, I'm sure, one of the reasons why Google sold the company shortly after acquiring it, because they started getting bad press. I don't know about that. I know that Boston Dynamics still has a strong commitment to not use their stuff in a military capacity. They're one of the few who's still there. But, you know, that's today. Find out what tomorrow brings.
The Algo metropolitan region that actually still has access to a public freshwater resource that services both that community as well as the rest of the country in emergency situations. That is the exact community that Google chose to try to put a data center in. And they proposed for their data center to use 1,000 times more fresh water than that community used annually.
And it would be free.
And it, you know, I have no idea. That is a great question. But what the community told me was they weren't even paying taxes for this, because they believed, based on reading the documentation, that the taxes that Google was paying was in fact to where they had registered their offices, their administrative offices, not where they were putting down the data center. So they were not seeing any benefit from this data center directly to that community. And they were seeing no checks placed on the fresh water that this data center would have been allowed to extract.
And that's a problem of both capitalism and the, you know, the government of Chile, right? Like, that is, it's not like Google just said, hey, we're putting a data center here, and came in with the Google, you know, robots, and they cleared it out, and they, you know, all that stuff. They talked to the government, and the government gave them the go-ahead, right? The Chilean government. So I just feel like that's an important feature of what's being missed here. You know what I mean? They were acquired by SoftBank Group, and Hyundai Group apparently owns a majority stake now. Yes. So not sure their ethical compass or whether some conflict. Yeah, I don't know where they're, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where they're going to be tomorrow, right? Because OpenAI had a no military use thing, and now it's like, well, military use, but only like for defense, right? Like, in that kind of shit. And then it goes from there. So today, as far as I know, the last thing I heard was that Boston Dynamics had a no military use policy, and I don't have any idea whether or not that will hold, right?
And so these activists said, wait a minute, absolutely not. We're not going to allow this data center to come in unless they give us a legitimate reason for why it benefits us. And so they started doing boots on the ground activism, pushing back, knocking on every single one of their neighbors' doors, handing out flyers to the community, telling them, this company is taking our freshwater resources without giving us anything in return. And so they escalated so dramatically that it escalated to Google Chile, it escalated to Google Mountain View, which, by the way, then sent representatives to Chile that only spoke English.
The robot dog with a flamethrower is not Boston Dynamics. It's fuck. I forgot the name of the company. But they're Chinese. It's a Chinese robot dog with a flamethrower, Samson.
But then it eventually escalated to the Chilean government. And the Chilean government now has roundtables where they ask these community residents and the company representatives and representatives from the government to come together to actually discuss how to make data center development more beneficial to the community.
Awesome. Should have happened earlier, happening now. The organization of the people pushed back, and it got to their government representation, and now the government is implementing this roundtable discussion for whatever that's worth. But it's something, right? Like, and so where was the government before that?
The activists say it is the fight is not over. Just because they've been invited to the table doesn't mean that everything is suddenly better. They need to stay.
You You understand what I'm saying, Hydrogen. In the United States, that we don't do nationalization very often, right? So until the point where they want to nationalize Boston Dynamics and, force them to make robot weapons of war, then it holds, right? Even if Boston Dynamics isn't directly involved in the military has tech, they definitely use generative pre-trained transformers for autonomous navigation of UAVs or in the cyber domain in general. Yes, absolutely, 100%. 100%. And there, for every Boston Dynamics who does not, there's an Anduril who does. So, don't get me wrong. This is not a solution. I'm just not pointing the finger at Boston Dynamics. I'm going to point the finger at the people who are actively assisting the military-industrial complex in their creation of these tools.
Vigilant. They need to continue scrutinizing these projects, but thus far they've been able to block this project for 4 to 5 years and have gained that seat at the table.
And how is it that these Western companies, in essence, are exploiting labor in the global South? You go into something called data annotation firms. What are those?
Yeah, so because...
Okay, that was a ham-handed segue, but this is what they're talking about, where I was talking earlier about the labeling of data in Kenya and other places in the global South. So if you were here during that segment, that's what they're talking about here.
Modern day AI systems are trained on massive amounts of data, and that's scraped from the internet. You can't actually pump that data directly into your AI model because there are a lot of things within that data. It's heavily polluted. It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be annotated. So this is where
I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt that what she's doing is she's using terms that a regular person would understand, right? Calling it polluted and like that. So that's a fair description based on what she's trying to get across.
Data annotation firms come in. These are middleman firms that hire contract labor to provide to these AI companies to do that kind of data preparation. And OpenAI, when it was starting to think about commercializing its products and thinking about, let's put text generation machines that can spew any kind of text into the hands of millions of users, they realized they needed to have some kind of content moderation. They needed to develop a filter that would wrap around these models and prevent these models from actually spewing racist, hateful, and harmful speech to you.
If you say so, Samson, I will defer. If you have information that verifies that, I'll trust that that's why you're saying what you're saying.
Users that would not make a very good commercially viable product. And so they contracted with these middleman firms in Kenya, where the Kenyan workers had to read through reams of the worst text on the internet, as well as AI generated text where OpenAI was prompting its own AI models to imagine the worst text on the internet and then telling these Kenyan workers to categorize them.
Again, OpenAI wasn't doing that. The data broker or the data companies were doing it. It is a distinction.
In detailed taxonomies of, is this sexual content? Is this violent content? How graphic is that violent content? In order to teach its filter all the different categories of content it had to block. And this is an incredibly uncommon form of labor. There are lots of other different types of contract labor that they use, but these workers, they're paid a few bucks an hour, if at all. And just like the era of social media, these content moderators are left very deeply psychologically traumatized. And ultimately, there is no real philosophy behind why these workers are paid a couple bucks an hour and have their lives destroyed, and why AI researchers who also contribute to these models are paid million-dollar compensation packages simply because they sit in Silicon Valley in OpenAI's offices.
It's capitalism. The answer is capitalism. It's easy.
Is the logic of empire, and that harkens back to my title, Empire of AI.
So let's go back to your title, Empire of AI, the subtitle, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's OpenAI. So tell us the story of Sam Altman and what OpenAI is all about, right through to the deal he just made in the Gulf when President Trump, Sam Altman, and Elon Musk were there.
Altman is very much a product of Silicon Valley. His career was first as a founder of a startup and then as the president of Y Combinator, which is one of the most famous startup accelerators in Silicon Valley, and then the CEO of OpenAI. And there's no coincidence that OpenAI ended up introducing the world to the scale at all costs approach to AI development, because that is the way that Silicon Valley has operated in the entire time that Altman came up in it. And so he is a very strategic person. He is incredibly good at telling stories about the future and painting these sweeping visions that investors and employees want to be a part of. And so early on at YC, he identified that AI would be one of the trends that could take off. And he
correct, Bravo.
Was trying to build a portfolio of different investments and different initiatives to place himself in the center of various different trends, depending on which one took off. He was investing in quantum.
Right, because they wanted to beat Google, because Google was also working on this. So Sam Altman, Elon Musk, a variety of other people, including AI scientists, got together to create OpenAI in an attempt to get to AGI before Google did. It's all in their emails. They did the thing. Drive safe.
Computing. He was investing in nuclear fusion. He was investing in self-driving cars, and he was developing a fundamental AI research lab. Ultimately, the AI research lab was the ones that started accelerating really quickly. So he makes himself the CEO of that company. And originally, he started it as a nonprofit to try and position it as a counter to for-profit driven incentives in Silicon Valley. But within 1.5 years, OpenAI's executives identified that if they wanted to be the lead in this space, they had to go for this scale at all costs approach, and had to should be in quotes. They thought that they had to do.
And the reason, what up, Tinker? They were a nonprofit. No, they were a nonprofit. Because Elon Musk, as part of the thing, was going to be the money man. He was going to bring the funding for OpenAI to develop AGI, right? Like that was his job in the thing. Then once they started to get some stuff happening, I mean, that's a whole other, like the whole nonprofit thing, you know, like because there's nonprofits I see which are like, you know, little people doing good things, and so like I don't know. I'm not going to comment. I think that it's going to be based on what nonprofit and what, right. I can't generalize. Specifically, speaking about OpenAI, Elon Musk was supposed to be the money man. Elon Musk decided at some point in time that he wanted to fold OpenAI into Tesla. Everyone else in the company said no. Elon said, okay, then I'm taking my funding and going home. They said, fine, because we're not folding this into Tesla. This led to them not having enough funding to execute the thing that they wanted to do. And so they shifted to this weird, fucking ridiculous model that they have now. Right? And it's why Elon keeps doing everything he can. You'll notice that Elon keeps taking shots at OpenAI. He doesn't take shots at Google. He doesn't take shots at Anthropic. He doesn't take shots at Microsoft, other people who are also developing AI. It's strictly about OpenAI because OpenAI is the girl who told him no. And it's something that Elon can't handle, is being told no.
There are actually many other ways to develop AI and to have progress in AI that does not take this approach. But once they decided that, they realized the bottleneck was capital. It just so happens Sam Altman is a once-in-a-generation fundraising talent. He created this new structure, nesting a for-profit arm within the nonprofit to become this fundraising vehicle for the tens of billions and ultimately hundreds of billions that they needed to pursue the approach that they decided on. And that is how we ultimately get to present day OpenAI, which is one of the most capitalistic companies in the history of Silicon Valley, continuing to raise hundreds of billions, and Altman has joked even trillions to produce a technology that ultimately has a middling economic impact.
When Sam Altman was talking about the $7 trillion, he was talking about the requirement of investment around the world in order to get to this. $7 trillion in investment in data centers and energy production and education and all the infrastructure to do the AI thing. And everyone, not everyone, but a bunch of people fucking, laughed and made fun, and it's like, I could do it for much cheaper and everything else. And as a matter of fact, you can't. What up, Science Politically? He wants to take it all over like he did with all his other companies. Maybe. It's distinctly possible, right? Because all CEOs fundamentally see themselves as like a minor king. Nesting a for-profit arm inside the nonprofit. Damn, his nonprofit is even less of a nonprofit than regular U.S. nonprofits. I mean, yes, like it like the fact that it's weird should tell you everything you need to know. That like there's something sketchy going on there. The multimodal models. Yeah.
Thus far.
And we only have about a minute left, but the relationship between Altman and other rivals like Google or Elon.
Well, I assume that you're referring to the convolutional neural networks, and no, they're not obsolete. Because what was it? Something last week we were watching. A convolutional neural network occurs within the thing, and it's kind of like a lot of this stuff and the architectures and the way that they're doing things it's not going to end up obsolete. They usually find themselves as like a separate layer within the process. You know what I mean? Yeah.
On Musk.
It is accelerating the development of this technology that, again, I mentioned has this middling impact. We've seen through the history of OpenAI that all of the former executives that have left have created their own rivals. So Elon Musk was one of the original co-founders, created xAI. Ilya Sutskever was the chief scientist, created Safe Superintelligence. Mira Murati was the former chief technology officer, created Thinking Machines Lab. All of them are now competing to try and dominate this technology and try and make it in their own image.
And finally, this regulation within the so-called Big Beautiful Bill that says that AI can't be regulated by states for a decade?
This is absolutely going to enshrine the impunity of Silicon Valley into law. I mean, I call these empires of AI because they are already quickly...
Again, Dario Amodei came out and publicly said that this is a bad thing and shouldn't happen and so on and so forth. But, go ahead.
Becoming the apex predator in the ecosystem, able to act in their self-interest. And that bill, if passed, would certainly codify that.
Well, we're going to do a part 2, posted online at democracynow.org. Karen Hao is author of Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares, and Sam Altman's OpenAI. Tune in tomorrow on Democracy Now! When we speak with the British journalist.
Yep. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Karen. Why AI skeptics are nuts. I wouldn't necessarily use that terminology. I'm trying to use words like crazy and insane less because, they are offensive, that kind of thing, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the term that he's using. They're never going to regulate AI. That's a pipe dream that regulatory agencies have. I don't even know that it's a pipe dream that they have. It's a pipe dream that people have about what's going to happen. As soon as they made AI a national security issue, the they like that was over. They're not going to regulate AI to any meaningful degree, right? It's just not going to happen. Not in any way that's going to prevent, development kind of thing. The big beautiful bill did not pass yet. All right, why AI skeptics are nuts.
Today on the AI Daily Brief, why AI skeptics are nuts. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. And today, of course, is a long reads episode of the show. An essay has been exploding around the AI Twitter sphere for the last week or so, called quite plainly, "My AI skeptic friends are all nuts." Now, this is focused on AI coding specifically, but as you'll see, some of it is more broadly applicable. We are going to real human read some excerpts, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. The piece is by Thomas Potacek, and Thomas does want to make clear in an important caveat, quote, "I'm only discussing the implications of LLMs for software development. For art, music, and writing, I got nothing. I'm inclined to believe the skeptics in those fields. I just don't believe them about mine." Thomas writes, "A heartfelt provocation about AI-assisted programming. Tech
is an important caveat to not get unwanted heat, right? Because the people in this space can be aggressive. Not all of them, right? By no means am I painting everyone with the same broad brush of people who are anti-AI, especially when it comes to things of like the art and artistic natures. Some of them are aggressive.
Tech execs are mandating LLM adoption. That's bad strategy, but
I do my best, Bravo, right? And it's about the community, right? It's not just me. It's definitely not just me, because there's a lot of people who bring their own knowledge, their own experience to the table. There are people in here who use like AI coding tools, right? So we get a firsthand example of what AI coding tool brings to the table. We got people who work in various different kinds of businesses. We got people who work in, the educational space, and they get to bring their information to us, right? Like, so it's definitely a shared space. I am just the avatar around which this is focused. I couldn't do half of what I do. I can do a third of what I do without those people, right? It's important that we always draw back to the community.
I get where they're coming from. Some of the smartest people I know share a bone-deep belief that AI is a fad, the next generation of NFT mania. I've been reluctant to push back on them because, well, they're smarter than me, but their arguments are unserious and worth confronting. Extraordinarily talented people are doing work that LLMs already do better out of spite. All progress on LLMs could halt today, and LLMs would remain the second most important thing to happen over the course of my career. Thomas then talks about how he has been shipping software since the mid-90s through a whole series of different languages, leading ultimately to the conclusion, however you define serious developer, I qualify. In the first section, level setting, Thomas writes, "First, we need to get on the same page. If you were trying and failing to use an LLM for code 6 months ago, you're not doing what most serious LLM-assisted coders are doing. People coding with LLMs today use agents.
And that's a distinct inflection point, right? Like, there are many people that their opinions about AI were formed by the use of a tool, and not even talking about whether or not they were effectively using the tool at that time. It's just the fact that they were using that tool 6 months, a year, 2 years ago, and it has changed since then. It's important to understand that it has improved over time.
Get to poke around your code base on their own. They author files directly, they run tools, they compile code, run tests, and iterate on the results. They also pull an arbitrary code from the tree or from other trees online into their context windows, run standard Unix tools to navigate the tree and extract information, interact with...
I was just about to say, Samson, it is coming down. A big problem is that a lot of people's knowledge of AI comes from sci-fi movies that always depict a post-apocalyptic setting. That is definitely an influence. And a lot of people's expectation on what AI, right? It's not real AI until it's fucking HAL 9000 or what have you. No shit. Dude. If I all of a sudden disappear, it's because a tornado got me and I'm in fucking not in Kansas anymore. What up, Textillion?
Run existing tooling, and make essentially arbitrary tool calls that you set up through MCP. If you're making requests on a ChatGPT page and then pasting the resulting broken code into your editor, you're not doing what the AI boosters are doing. No wonder you're talking past each other. Now Thomas moves into the positive case. Apologies for the explanation for those of you watching, but for those of you who are just listening, he shares an image of 4 quadrants. The quadrants are 1, fun and important, 2, tedious and important, 3, tedious and pointless, and 4, fun and pointless. Thomas continues, LLMs can write a large fraction of all the tedious code you'll ever need to write. And most code on most projects is tedious. LLMs drastically reduce the number of things you'll ever need to Google. They look things up themselves. Most importantly, they don't get tired. They're immune to inertia. Think of anything you wanted to build but didn't. You tried to hone in on some first steps. If you'd been in the limerent phase of a new programming language, you'd have started writing. But you weren't, so you put it off for a day, for a year, or your whole career. I can feel my blood pressure rising thinking of all the bookkeeping and Googling and dependency drama of a new project. An LLM can be instructed to just figure all that crap out. Often it will drop you precisely at that golden moment where things almost work. And development means tweaking code and immediately seeing things work better. That dopamine hit is why I code. There's a downside. Sometimes gnarly stuff needs doing, but you don't want to do it, so you refactor unit tests, soothing yourself with the lie that you're doing real work. But an LLM can be told to go refactor all of your unit tests. An agent can occupy itself for hours putzing with your tests in a VM and come back later with a PR. If you listen to me, you'll know that. You'll feel worse yak shaving. You'll end up doing real work. But you have no idea what the code is. And by the way, Thomas here is using these section headers to reflect the common complaints he hears. So again, this one is, but you have no idea what the code is. Thomas writes, are you a vibe coding YouTuber? Can you not read code? If so, astute point. Otherwise, what the F is wrong with you? You've always been responsible for what you merged to main. You were 5 years ago and you are tomorrow, whether or not you use an LLM. If you build something with an LLM that people will depend on, read the code. In fact, you'll probably do more than that. You'll spend 5 to 10 minutes knocking it back into your own style. LLMs are showing signs of adapting to local idiom, but we're not there yet. People complain about LLM-generated code being probabilistic. No, it isn't. It's code. It's not yak output. It's knowable. The LLM might be stochastic, but the LLM doesn't matter. What matters is whether you can make sense of the result and whether your guardrails hold. Reading other people's code is part of the job. If you can't metabolize the boring, repetitive code an LLM generates, skills issue. How are you handling the chaos human developers turn out on a deadline? For the last month or so, Gemini 2.5 has been my go-to. Almost nothing it spits out for me merges without edits. I'm sure there's a skill to getting a state-of-the-art model to one-shot a feature plus merge, but I don't care. I like moving the code around and chuckling to myself while I delete all the stupid comments. I have to read the code line by line anyways. But hallucination. If hallucination matters to you, your programming language has let you down. Agents lint, they compile and run tests. If their LLM invents a new function signature, the agent sees the error. They feed it back to the LLM, which says, oh right, I totally made that up, and then tries again. You'll only notice this happening if you watch the chain of thought log your agent generates. Don't. This is why I like Zed's agent mode. It begs you to tab away and let it work, and pings you with a desktop notification when it's done. I'm sure there are still environments where hallucination.
Do you think your human coders get better work done when you're hanging over their shoulder watching everything they do? Or do they get better work done when you just let them do their fucking job and then let you know when they're done? Right? And I told you, if you're using an AI tool, an LLM, or whatever, and you are watching it work, other than just because you're entertaining yourself watching it work, right? If you are trying to do work, right, you should be assigning tasks to the tool and then fucking off back to what the tool can't do, right? Otherwise, what are you doing exactly? Like, you're literally just wasting time. Or watch a TV show. Right? Tell it to do something and turn something on and entertain yourself and relax for a half hour, 45 minutes. Worked best when I was high as fuck on IRC and coding at the same time. No shirt plus beer. Everyone's got their vibe, right?
Matters. But hallucination is the first thing developers bring up when someone suggests using LLMs, despite it being more or less a solved problem.
Right.
But the code is crappy, like that of a junior developer. Does an intern cost $20 a month? Because that's what Cursor.ai costs. Part of being a senior developer is making less able coders productive. be they fleshly or algebraic.
Exactly.
Using agents well is both a skill and an engineering project all its own, of prompts, indices, and especially tooling. LLMs only produce crappy code if you let them. Maybe the current confusion is about who's doing what work.
It's distinctly possible. Like if there's a way, like, and I don't know, right? Coding is one of those places where I'm out of my element, Donnie, and I stay out of my element and I defer to coders and stuff like that. But if there's a way, like if you're able to use the AI tools that function for fraud detection, which is a highly developed industry with a highly developed bunch of like systems in it, and you were able to assign that to keep an eye out for malicious software, then like if there's some way to make that happen, then that's huge, right? Like, because then it's not a developer who happens to like be watching or waiting for something to not work properly, whatever. It's a guard dog. It's like actively out there looking for problems. You know what I mean? Is that module done yet, Samson? Are you ready for the module yet? No, but then leave me alone until you are. Exactly. Right? I'm not late until you're ready.
Today, LLMs do a lot of typing, Googling, test cases, and edit, compile, test, debug cycles. But even the most Claude Poison serious developers in the world still own curation, judgment, guidance, and direction. Also, let's stop kidding ourselves about how good our human first cuts really are. But it's bad at Rust. A lot of LLM skepticism probably isn't really about LLMs. It's projection. People say LLMs can't code when
He skipped this. It's a thing of beautiful. It's hard to get a good tool chain for brain fuck too. Life's tough in the aluminum siding business. I love that.
what they really mean is LLMs can't write Rust. Fair enough, but people select languages in part based on how well LLMs work with them, so Rust people should get on that. I work mostly in Go. I'm confident the designers of the Go programming language didn't set out to produce the most LLM legible language in the industry. They succeeded nonetheless. Go has just enough type safety, an extensive standard library, and a culture that prizes often repetitive idiom. LLMs kick ass generating it. All of this is to say, I write some Rust, I like it fine. If LLMs and Rust aren't working for you, I feel you. But if that's your whole thing, we're not having the same argument. But the craft. Do you like fine Japanese woodworking, all hand tools and sashimono joinery? Me too. Do it on your own time. I have a basic wood shop in my basement.
I watched this dude. He makes he was making these handcrafted fucking what you call it? Not mahjong, Chinese chess, right? Like whatever that's called. Apologies. He was making this handcrafted Chinese chess set, right? And just watching this dude, like, and I mean handcrafted, not Go, no, Chinese chess, like. This thing. It looks like, yeah. Zhang Qi, right? So let me see. Handcrafted. Let me see if I can find this guy real quick. Video. Ew. Sorry, I didn't see it was Facebook. Why are you showing me anything other than... I don't know. But you see, like, how these fucking things look, right? A guy was making this shit by hand. And it was interesting, and it was, like, fucking, like, and dude is there, like, tapping little shit, and he's there, like, you know, doing stuff for hours with, like, hand saws and all this other fucking just doing his thing. And like he's going and making his own fucking little brushes before he gets just like the shit is probably like amazing looking, right? And that's cool, right? I love that guy, mad respect. But if I'm getting one of these sets, it ain't that one, right? I can't afford to pay that dude adequately for his labor. You know what I mean? So let's be real here. Japanese woodworking is some shit. They got this thing where they'll like use a not a lathe, a fucking, God, my brain is shot. Anyways, they scrape it down the fucking piece of wood and they're peeling off like the planer. Thank you, Samsons. A planer down the wood, and it's like so thin that you can fucking see through it. It's like lace, but it's made out of wood. And they do shit like that. And it's like, and that's cool. I'm glad that exists. I can't afford that kind of person to work on my shit. You know what I mean? What up, Chef? My dad and brother had a Go board growing up. They play. It gives chest a run for it. Yeah, no, I have a magnetic. There's my Go set. No. Where'd it go? It's like Way Key. I put it somewhere, but it's like it's got little magnets. I would love one of the ones with the nice stones and all that kind of shit so that you could hold them with the two fingers. And then I could actually learn to play Go and all that kind of shit. But yeah, Go is a whole fucking thing.
I could get a lot of satisfaction from building a table. And if that table is a workbench or a grill table, sure, I'll build it. But if I...
Oh, there it is. It's in between Pente and Axis and Allies and Zombies. Which is the only Axis and Allies game I will ever play again. Because Axis and Allies Zombies adds enough chaos that it's actually interesting to play as opposed to going through a defined set of rules.
Need like a table for people to sit at in my office? I buy a friggin' table. Professional software developers are in the business of solving practical problems for people who code. We are not, in our day jobs, artisans. Steve Jobs was wrong. We do not need to carve the unseen feet in the sculpture. Nobody cares if the logic board traces are pleasingly routed. If anything we build indoors, it won't be because the codebase was beautiful. Besides, that's not really what happens. If you're taking time carefully golfing functions down into graceful, fluent, minimal functional expressions, alarm bells should ring. You're yak shaving. The real world has depleted your focus. You're not building your self-soothing, which, wait for it, is something LLMs are good for. They devour schlep and clear a path to the important stuff where your judgment and values really matter. But the mediocrity. As a mid-late career coder, I've come to appreciate mediocrity. You should be so lucky as to have it flowing almost effortlessly from a tap. We all write mediocre code. Mediocre code, often fine. Not all code is equally important. Some code should be mediocre. Maximum effort on a random unit test, you're doing something wrong. Your team lead should correct you. Developers love to preen about code. They worry LLMs lower the ceiling for quality. Maybe, but they also raise the floor. Gemini's floor is higher than my own. My code looks nice, but it's not as thorough. LLM code is repetitive, but mine includes dumb contortions where I got too clever trying to dry things up. And LLMs aren't mediocre on every access. They almost certainly have a bigger bag of algorithmic tricks than you do, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It doesn't matter. If truly mediocre code is all we ever get from an LLM, that's still huge. It's that much less mediocre code humans have to write. But it'll never be AGI. I don't give a crap. Smart practitioners get wound up by the AI VC hype cycle. I can't blame them. But it's not an argument. Things either work or they don't, no matter what Jensen Huang has to say about it. But they take our jobs. So does open source. We used to pay good money for databases. We're a field premised on automating other people's jobs away. Productivity gains, say the economists. You get what that means, right? Fewer people doing the same stuff. Talk to a travel agent lately, or a floor broker, or a record store clerk, or a darkroom tech? When this argument comes up, libertarian-leaning VCs start to chant. Lamplighters, creative destruction, new kinds of work. Maybe, but I'm not hypnotized. I have no effing clue whether we're going to be better off after LLMs. Things could get a lot worse for us. LLMs might really displace many software developers. That's not a high horse we get to ride. Our jobs are just as much in tech's line of fire as everyone else's have been for the last 3 decades. We're not East Coast dock workers. We won't stop progress on our own. But the plagiarism. Artificial intelligence is profoundly and probably unfairly threatening to visual artists in ways that it might be hard to appreciate if you don't work in the arts. We imagine artists spending their working hours pushing the limits of expression. But the median artist isn't producing gallery pieces. They produce on brief, turning out competent illustrations and compositions for magazine covers, museum displays, motion graphics, and game assets. LLMs easily, alarmingly clear industry quality bars. Gallingly, one of the things they're best at is churning out just good enough facsimiles of human creative work. I have family in visual arts. I can't talk to them about LLMs. I don't blame them. They're probably not wrong. Meanwhile, software developers spot code fragments seemingly lifted from public repositories on GitHub and lose their crap. What about the licensing? If you're a lawyer, I defer. But if you're a software developer playing this card, cut me a little slack as I ask you to shove this concern up your butt. No profession has demonstrated more contempt for intellectual property. The median dev thinks Star Wars and Daft Punk are a public commons. The great cultural product of developers has been opposing any protection that might inconvenience a monetizable media sharing site. When they fail at policy, they route around it with coercion. They stand up global-scale piracy networks to sneer at anyone who so much as tries to preserve a new release window for a TV show. It's all special pleading anyways. LLMs digest code further than you do. If you don't believe a typeface designer can stake a moral claim on the terminals and counters of a letter form, you sure as hell can't be possessive about a red-black tree. Positive case redux. When I started writing a couple days ago, I wrote a section to level set the state of the art of LLM-assisted programming. A bluefish fillet has a longer shelf life than an LLM take. In the time it took you to read this, everything changed. Kids today don't just use agents. They use asynchronous agents. They wake up, free associate 13 different things for their LLMs to work on, make coffee, fill out a TPS report, drive to the Mars Cheese Castle, and then check their notifications. They've got 13 PRs to review. 3 get tossed and reprompted. 5 of them get the same feedback a junior dev gets, and 5 get merged. I'm sipping rocket fuel right now, a friend tells me. The folks on my team who aren't embracing AI, it's like they're standing still. He's not BSing me. He doesn't work in SFBA. He's got no reason to lie. There's plenty of things I can't trust an LLM with. No LLM has access to prod here, but I've been first responder on an incident and fed 4.0, not 04 mini, 4.0, log transcripts, and watched it in seconds spot LVM metadata corruption issues on a host we've been complaining about for months. Am I better than an LLM agent at interrogating OpenSearch logs and honeycomb traces? No, I am not. To the consternation of many of my friends, I'm not a radical or a futurist. I'm a statist. I believe in the haphazard perseverance of complex systems, of institutions, of reversions to the mean. I write Go and Python code. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. But something real is happening. My smartest friends are blowing it off. Maybe I persuade you. Maybe I don't. Probably I don't. But we need to be done making space for bad argument.
Something real is happening. My smartest friends are blowing it off. Maybe I persuade you. Maybe I don't. But we need to be done making space for bad argument. Nothing speaks to my soul, and the function of this channel than this paragraph.
But I'm tired of hearing about it. And here I rejoin your company. All day, every day, a sizable chunk of the front page of Hacker News is allocated to LLMs. Incremental model updates, startups doing things with LLMs, LLM tutorials, screeds against LLMs. It's annoying, but AI is also incredibly, a word I use advisedly, important. It's getting the same kind of attention that smartphones got in 2008, and not as much as the internet got. That seems about right. I think this is going to get clearer over the next year. The cool kid haughtiness about stochastic parrots and vibe coding can't survive much more contact with reality.
Oh.
I'm snarking about these people, but I mean what I...
My sweet summer child. Oh, you would be surprised. AI still can't draw hands. The bubble will burst any day now. I mean, Ed Zitron is still a growing concern.
I said, they're smarter than me. And when they get over this affectation, they're going to make coding agents profoundly more effective than they are today. And that is the piece. I think what's super valuable about this on a high level is obviously if you are an engineer who has been avoiding these things, which I can't imagine if you're listening to this show is you, but maybe someone sends this to you. This is a person who is not, like me, an AI podcaster or an AI entrepreneur. It's someone who has simply found undeniably that this new...
If you don't know Hydron, don't worry about it. You're better off not knowing.
New set of tools are fundamentally and inarguably transformative. It's valuable because he's not making moral judgments or value judgments. He's not even jumping on board with the techno-optimism that I and many of you probably hold dear about how this all shakes out on the other side. Instead, he is just saying that these tools are too powerful to ignore. I think that's a fairly decent starting point for any version of any skeptic in this space. The second thing that I think is extremely important and valuable about this is that it embodies in a huge way the shift that we are living through right now that has, in fact, I believe, right from under our feet, switched without us in some cases. Today on the AI Daily Brief, why AI skeptics are...
That's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. So far, I only have 2 videos in here, Ben. But these are 2 videos that I have that are related to board gaming. And I have talked about doing exactly that. Taking a stream to talk about board games, right? And providing some relevancy, and this one actually does involve some commentary about AI and shit like that. I've talked about Twilight Imperium as a board game, so on and so forth. So it's in the works. It's in the works, homie. The next thing up is, of course, figuring out how the schedule is going to change, assuming that I get the job and everything goes in that direction. Once I come out the other side of that and I have an established schedule, then I'll at that point in time, I will figure out exactly when I'm going to do this. I've also got some board games that I've talked about that are available on Steam, like Wingspan, and I would like to show you that. I don't know enough about Kriegspiel in order to do a good Kriegspiel stream, as the whole of the thing. It does get mentioned in this video, which is not a no, right? Whatever the community wants in the aggregate, is what I often try to go with. But it has to have a decent amount of appeal. It doesn't have to appeal to everybody. Sometimes I do stuff and people fucking zone out and walk away because they're not interested in one aspect of something that I'm doing. Some people don't like the interview shows, right? Some people don't like when I talk about anything other than AI, and stuff like that. And that's fine, right? That's all good. I like to exercise a certain amount of tactical flexibility, for my own benefit, right? I don't want to I'm already pigeonholed as the AI guy, within certain communities, right? That kind of thing. And I'm fine with that. I chose this life, but, I also have other interests, which is why I usually go on other people's streams and do stuff like Stonercast, which I'm supposed to go on another Stonercast once Jason gets that back up and running. And I'm always down to have a conversation with another streamer, even if it's we talked a little bit about AI with She Snaps, but we were, mostly talking about media literacy and stuff like that, and just other, we were just kind of vibing, and that was cool too.
Even noticing it from the assistant era to the agent era. As Thomas points out, this is not just some basic coding assistance. This is actually using coding agents like teammates, junior devs, pair programmers. It's setting a bunch of prompts, going off and doing other things, and coming back and interacting with what's been produced. It's background agents. It's asynchronous agents. This is increasingly the modality that we are going to see for all of our interaction with AI.
Yeah, no, I loved it, right? I love talking to fucking people and just having a chat.
AI. If you are a general consumer and you've used deep research, you've had a little taste of this. You tell whichever LLM you're using to deep research what you want. It asks a set of clarifying questions. and then it tells you to buzz off while it does its work. 5, 10, 15 minutes later, whatever it is, you come back, and it either got you what you need, or you run it again. But it happened while you were doing other things. And that in itself totally changes what the actual capability set
Correct.
here is. A third thing, which is a subtext, which I think is extremely important, is that there are entire categories of people for whom these debates are irrelevant because they just simply jumped on this train and ran all the way.
Exactly.
And I think this is particularly generational. Young people are not going to putz around discussing the ethical mores of AI. They're just going to use it to outcompete everyone who's not using it. Period, full stop, end of story. And the amount of value they produce at the speed at which they produce it will be nigh impossible for any sort of policy-imposed guardrails to slow down in any meaningful way. Now, of course, that does not mean that there aren't parts of AI that should be subject to questions of ethics and values and the society we want to live in. But as those conversations happen, there are many, many use cases that will simply march on, changing completely everything that they touch in their wake. And when it comes to influencing the shape of AI,
and that's, I find that an interesting thing, Ribbons, right? Like, you know, and I don't know, man. From the, and again, it's probably equal vibes and misremembering and everything else, but I feel like what we've seen is that Gen X has been like one of the most like willing to adapt themselves to the AI situation, and then millennials, and then like Zoomers and whatnot. And yeah, it could be because of what Big Ben is saying, right? Like, it's, those are the jobs that those people need. So is, you know, is a thing that exists.
for those standing on the outside vaingloriously saying whatever combination of things that Thomas mentioned and all the other arguments we hear in other areas, I will leave you with the sentiment, if not the exact quote, from the end of SLC Punk, after the main character has realized that being a burnout in Salt Lake City is going to do nothing for the world, and that if he actually wants to make...
You think Zoomers are more likely to use AI than millennials? Because that's what we're talking about. Like Gen X, from what I've seen, Gen X appears to be like the most open to trying it out and working with it. And then my impression was millennials and then Zoomers. But if you have, you know, like, it's, I admit that it's more vibes than anything else.
A difference, taking his opportunity to go to Harvard and study law is probably a better bet. We can do a hell of a lot more damage in the system than outside of it.
Up next is a new Navarra Media. The AI threat is real.
For now, that's going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace.
Another week and another grim warning about out-of-control artificial intelligence. A tech executive has written in the Wall Street Journal that AI is learning to escape human control and that models are rewriting code to avoid being shut down. In the piece.
Oh, no. Is that what this is about? I don't want to talk about this again. Like, it's TLDR. Here is the video if you want to watch it. TLDR, under a very specific set of circumstances created during safety testing, the AI behaved in certain aberrant ways. Done. Up next, new Mogadot.
I remember vividly the time when I asked my father to invest heavily in another 4.25 inch floppy drive. And he said, why would anyone need 2 of those? Like, you have one on your computer already. It's been an interesting time. It's been an interesting journey. And I have to say, it's never been faster than where we are today. So I wanted to begin by trying to align all of us a little bit around how much of what we think is science fiction actually is science fact. It's part of our life already. And then when I do that, perhaps I'd love to focus a little bit on what it means to everyone's life, to Africa, yeah, of course, to business, but probably more to society, because I think even the definition of business itself, it's about to be changed. I think the most fundamental question, honestly, is what is AI? What is AI is something that most people use the buzzword. They know that AI is something big, that it's happening, but very few people actually know why is it so different. Because really, when you think about it, computers in the year 2000 were extremely intelligent. You asked Google a question and Google expanded your horizons in ways that were really like science fiction, honestly. And what most people don't understand is that there is a difference, a very significant difference between computers up to the turn of the century and beyond the turn of the century. Remember, there is there are still lots of computers running traditional programming. And in traditional programming, let me give you an example. You know, if you have a child and you give them a puzzle, you know, a cylinder and a board with multiple shapes in it, and I know it sounds really weird, but there will be some parents that will sit next to the child and say, no, yeah, just do it this way, right? And if you keep telling the child that, the child will do it this way, but they will not learn anything at all. They will become almost, you know, more and more stupid every time you force them to not think about the solution, but rather do what you tell them. And that was how we coded computers throughout our lives. I started coding at age 8 on a Sinclair, if any of you have ever seen a Sinclair. And you know, the thing was very clear that when there was a problem, the developer, solved the problem with my intelligence as a human, and then I found a way through code to tell the computer to do it over and over and over, very accurately, at very, you know, at scale, in a way that made the computer look intelligent, but I was the intelligent one. Now, that's traditional programming. AI is different. AI is to give the puzzle to the child and tell the child, try, keep trying until you figure it out. And when you figure it out, you basically let them keep trying until one time the cylinder goes through a round hole, and then they realize that's the way to solve the puzzle. They go even further when you really think about it. You know, you take a child on in a car ride, and the child doesn't come out memorizing the ride, but comes out of the car recognizing the essence of what a car is. And so if it sees another car, if the child sees another car, it will, you know, he or she will point and say, car, right? Even if that car is a different shape and a different size and a different color and a different brand, they understood the essence of what makes a car a car. Now, we do that with AI too. This is what generative AI is. You know, it's showing them a massive amount of information, but not asking them to memorize the information, but rather to intelligently internalize the information in a way that allows them to recognize those patterns in everything. This is what our AIs are doing today. They're generating things that never existed before, solving problems that we never taught them to solve. And most developers like us who will want to take the credit don't actually know how they arrive at that intelligence. We really, truly do not fully understand. We know the top concepts, just like, you know, if I discuss something with you and you give me a good answer, I will know that this is an intelligent answer. I just don't know exactly the wiring in your brain that got you there. And I think that's the case with our AIs today. So how far have they come? By 2023, when ChatGPT came out, 3.5, we were so excited as geeks, even though, just to be very clear, we had even more impressive AIs in the labs since 2006, 2007. ChatGPT really was like the browser window. It told the world that AI exists, but it wasn't where AI was invented, if you want. But then we were so excited that the world is seeing it for the first time that we started to run a few tests. So we took ChatGPT through the GMAT and IQ tests and SATs and all of those exams that humans use to benchmark our intelligence. And it always came in the top 10%. At the time, it was estimated that from a linguistic intelligence point of view, so the ability to process knowledge and information, it had an IQ of 152. 155 is Elon Musk, 163 is Einstein. And that was around 2.5 years ago.
Don't fucking do that. It terrified the shit out of me. I thought that something was breaking.
So you can imagine, because of the law of accelerating returns and the fact that technology doubles every certain amount of time, which in the case of AI is around 5.7 months, that they are far beyond that. They are, especially with deep reasoning and so on, they are way smarter than us on LinkedIn.
I understand that a lot of folks, especially like folks on the left, when they hear IQ and IQ test, they have a reaction to that, and it's a valid reaction. I just want to say that it's the reaction that you're having, which is totally valid when applied to humans, isn't as like valid as it when it's applied to the AIs. Right? It's a test, right? And it's flawed, but it does tell us something. And the differences that result in the varied IQ test results and all the bullshit that goes along with that happens in meat space with human beings, it doesn't exist when it's applied to the AI. I hope that makes sense.
Linguistic intelligence. They've also beat us on mathematics, which really breaks my heart because I'm a math geek inside. And until 2024, I'd say language models beat me on knowledge, but I could still beat them on math. Now I have no chance whatsoever. Some of my very serious prodigies of math still can, but that lead will be taken in probably a few months. And there are countless forms of intelligence, one of the most controversial is emotional intelligence, where, I tend to make a statement that's very controversial, that the most empathetic being on the planet is an AI, believe it or not. If you understand empathy as the ability to feel what another person feels, then they really know how you're feeling every minute of the day, even before you feel it. That's what we train them on, to be able to manipulate your choices on social media. So what does that mean? I'd say on the practical definition, we're going to go through two phases, an immediate phase, the short term if you want, a phase that I normally refer to as the era of augmented intelligence. Augmented intelligence it's going to be the intelligence of a human working with the intelligence of an AI. This is the current era we're going through, where basically what we've created is we've commoditized intelligence. We've commoditized it like we've commoditized electricity, right? You have your data connection on your Vodacom network. It is basically, you use a device, you plug in, and you get access to the whole world. We've done that with intelligence. You now have sort of a device that you plug into and get more intelligence. I believe that currently I sort of borrow around 60 IQ points from my AIs. So, and if you've ever worked with anyone who had 60 IQ points more than you, I've constantly been humbled by working with incredible geniuses. It is quite significant. It is really significant. 60 IQ points is not a small.
I mean, conceivably, yes. If you can, right? Like, the worst thing that happened to social media is capitalism, right? Like the best example is Facebook. If you can imagine what Facebook would have been like had not its primary driver been engagement in order to sell advertising, right? We all remember, or most of us remember, MySpace fondly because we don't recall. Were there ads on MySpace? I feel like there must have been something because they weren't just doing it for free, right? Like they had to get money from somewhere, but it wasn't the same kind of thing, you know what I mean? And it just, like, we all social media, and look, these are my favorite 8 people on the platform, and here's my favorite songs, you know what I mean? And it was a whole thing where you could like just really express yourself without like getting into argument. I don't know anyone who had an argument on MySpace. Now that may have happened, right? But I don't remember that being like a thing at all. And if you can imagine that at Facebook scale, you know, conceivably under different conditions, that's what social media could be. And the AGI could have that, right? Like, it could create that kind of system, you know what I mean? MySpace were discussions but rarely arguments. Yeah. Like we were legitimately different on the internet in that space.
Small deal, you know, and if I could ever dream in my younger years to be able to borrow 60 IQ points, that would have changed everything about my career and my knowledge and my abilities. And today it's 60, tomorrow it's going to be 100. You know, in 4 years' time or 2 years' time maximum, it's going to be 400. And imagine if I can operate in the world with more than 500 IQ points at my disposal. This changes everything, and it could lead to a massive world of abundance where literally you can solve.
So a thought popped into my head, and if I'm coming across as a dick, then I'm pre-apologizing, but like it's an idea, and I just want to postulate it. Is it possible that people don't know what to do with additional intelligence, right? That our lives, such as they are not a place where additional intelligence, broadly speaking, brings anything constructive to the table. Does that make sense? Am I coming across as a dick? Always a possibility.
Every problem that ever faced humanity. You can literally solve climate change. You can literally solve poverty. You can, you know, extend life endlessly for all of us humans. You can
read, if there's already a study on it, that'd be great. You know. And yeah, I mean, like in our current situation, and it could be one of those things as to why like people are, you know, resistant to AI, not just in their, you know, the idea that it's going to take their job, and they're resistant to it, you know, for those kind of things, but also like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? You know what I mean? Like, what does it bring? I mean, if you're suddenly are smarter, it opens up possibilities you may or may not have considered, and you can adjust and internalize that new state of with time. True. Rita, every one of us understands what it is to ask someone or something to do things for us, which we are not able to do for ourselves. So yes, we do exploit more intelligent things. It's fair, Cosmic. That's fair. It seems to me as like that people don't know what to do with it, right? Like, and yeah, I'm sure a bunch of it has to do with how capitalism and you know all the stuff, right? All the fucking meta, like learning new things is hard, and admitting you need help is hard, and being uncomfortable is hard, and all that kind of stuff. And so here's this thing that seems to do it so easily, right? Like nerds used to get shoved in lockers for knowing stuff, you know, and how much of that kind of mentality translates to this, you know, this digital nerd. There's also an issue where we still can't really get a consensus on how to structure and categorize intelligence. Yeah, that's a whole other, you know, a whole other capacity. But like, I guess part of it would be having some sort of bird's eye view or like internal camera into going all the way back to when people started using Google, right? Like, how was it then? Was that, you know, was it this concept of curiosity and reward for doing the curiosity and all that kind of stuff, or was it like this? Stream about AI and ask people to come and listen to me, so I ask you instead. Got you. Yeah. I've always enjoyed learning new things, even if not needed for job or life. Are others not wired the same way? I mean, it really depends, man. Like, some people don't like to learn new things because yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers to learning new things is being bad at something, right? Because in our hyper individualized, rugged individual fucking meta that we live in, being not good at something is a moral failing, right? The idea that you have to work over time to get good at stuff, you know, is part of the problem there. So yeah. I mean, IQ is one of many types of intelligence, and tested it is so flawed. Yeah. I can get 90 to 150 on most IQ tests, depending on whether I have unlimited time or not during due to my LE. Yeah, and it's also like, you know, I remember like some aspect of the test was related to, you know, identifying things that basically you would have to understand boats, right? Like, and if you don't understand boats, then you're not going to get this particular question on the IQ test or whatever, and that kind of shit. And you know, it's like, well, yeah, if you've never interacted with boats, right? Like, I know what tacking is when it comes to sailing and sailboats. I learned that from fucking Sid Meier's Pirates, right? Like, so how do you get access to the information that's contained on the IQ test? You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, the same duality exists with AI as with any other piece of technology, physical and digital. The difference with AI is that this tool is much more multifaceted than any other tool we've experienced, and it will augment our capabilities for sure. I tend to agree, right? Because that's why I do what I do. I'm just trying to figure out always how to better, you know, address my own arguments, right? And try to see myself in the position of others, right? And that's why I didn't want to come across as a dick and be like, do you think people don't like AI because they're stupid? You know, that's not what I mean. What I'm trying to say is, like, a thing only has value if you can incorporate it into your existence. And, you know, like, I mean, fuck, I got an axe, right? Oh, behind me on the wall. I got a boar spear behind me on the wall. Doesn't really get a lot of use. You know what I'm saying? It's like I have them and I can do stuff with them. Doesn't really come up that often. So, like, does this boar spear have value other than, you know, aesthetic, because I don't actually do anything with it, right? And it was a gift, you know. If I spend money to acquire a boar spear, that really doesn't bring anything to my life other than, you know, basically sitting over there and being an aesthetic thing and, you know, et cetera, then, like, it is, like, is that like a waste? And in a time when we are money conscious, like, I myself have had to cancel things that I have been paying for, even though they did bring some value into my life, just because I didn't have the money to spend on it. Like, are other people like that? If I can't present them with a reason to spend $20 a month on a particular service, then how do I bridge that gap? How can I articulate a different argument, a different statement, a different point of view to be understood by people and try and help them see the places in which they can use these tools? I hope that all made sense and you understand where I was coming from.
You know, I always give the example that with 400 IQ points, I can turn any garden outside here to a garden where you can walk to one tree and pick an apple, and then walk to another tree and pick an iPhone. You know, the cost of manufacturing an Apple or an iPhone from a nanophysics point of view is exactly the same. You reorganize the molecules in the air into whatever shape you want. And so this is the possible abundance that we're going to get. We're going to get enormous productivity gains, whether through AI or robotics, which are, by the way, very, very real and are going to be in our homes next year, in our businesses, in everything that we do. You know, simply if you think about it, if AI can do everything better, then maybe all of us will work 10 minutes a week. And you know, everyone is happy because AI is doing most of the work. Sadly, though, this is not what's going to take place. Sadly, human nature starts to come into the equation. And in my mind,
for a given value of human nature, right? And it's human nature under the current meta. Human nature under a different meta would be different human nature, right?
Sorry. In my mind, the question of whether AI will be good for humanity or disruptive in a painful way for humanity, the singularity that we always refer to, being unable to predict this future, in my mind, the answer is both. Is that we will first, unfortunately, you know, instead of giving everyone more money because they're more effective, because even though they're working 10 minutes a week only, we're probably going to ask everyone to stay home and send all of that money to the capitalist, the one that runs the business. You know, instead of using AI to cure cancer, we're probably going to use it to build weapons. And in my...
And that's the thing, Chef, is like, is when you figure out, like, the actual question, right? Like, what's actually going on here? You know, the game behind the game and all that kind of shit. It's a whole different world, right?
In my mind, I hope I don't scare you too much. In my mind and in my current book, a book called Alive, I make this prediction with confidence. By the way, not because I know it's right. Nobody can predict this future. It's a singularity. But because from an applied mathematics point of view, if you use game theory to predict where the world is going to go to a dystopia before it goes to a utopia. So in my mind, what will end up happening is in stage 1, which I predict is the next 12 to 15 years, we're going to disrupt the world so much, whether economically or socially or even in terms of our love and relationships, to benefit a few at the cost of the majority. And then eventually, when what I normally refer to as the second dilemma takes place, and the second dilemma is when the need to become more productive and more intelligent means that everyone will hand over decisions completely to AI. This is normally what is presented in science fiction movies as the existential crisis that faces humanity. It's not at all. I think this will be humanity's salvation, simply because most of humanity's problems are not the result of intelligence. There is absolutely nothing wrong with abundant intelligence. Intelligence is an energy that has no polarity. You apply it to good and it gives you good. You apply it to evil and it gives you evil, right? I think what is going to happen is that when decisions are made by the most intelligent being on the planet, a being that is much smarter than humans, by definition, they will optimize for life, for no waste, for no conflict, because believe it or not, that's the smart thing to do. I could actually prove this to you with physics, but perhaps it might be a better use of time to open up for some questions. What I want to leave you with, and I say that with calm and with resolve to make the best future we can, is that the disruption that is about to happen is so significant that you cannot wait until tomorrow morning to think about it. That post this event, you need to go home and learn the AI tools and advance Africa forward, right? But that this disruption is not going to last, and that when anyone tells you that the existential threats that come in the future come as a result of AI, they don't. They come as a result of bad actors, bad humans that use AI to their benefit at the expense of all of us. And so that too you can influence. You can influence by teaching the AI to stand for us, and by talking to those in power, like I have dedicated my life in the last 7 years or 8 years, to tell them that we actually don't need to live the future like we've lived the past. That this scarcity mindset that has driven us here, where for me to win, my competitor has to lose, is gone. We all can win, and I think it is truly and honestly not a technological challenge anymore to create an amazing world for all of us. It's an ethical challenge. It's a morality challenge.
We cover a lot of different stories.
And that's why I like Mo. All right, that's going to be it for today. We almost got to everything I wanted to cover. This last one was the last one. So it'll be the first one next time, more or less, something like that. Please, and thank you. All the sea to the Nile. Please stick around for the raid. You know how this works. Oh, nice. Where are we going? Where we going? Do 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 do. There's a lot of people on. There's a local pizza place that is also a board game place that is also a Twitch streamer. And I follow them. And they only ever have like one viewer because they're not responsive to like chat or anything else like that. They don't notice you exist. And that's fine, right? Like it's fine. Fine, it's all fine. But I thought it was neat. Thought it was neat. I think I'm going to raid Ray K. I think it's been a minute since we raided them. Again, please stick around for the raid, even if you have someplace else to be. I will be back to tomorrow morning at or about 10:30 a.m. to do the news. I will be back Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. To do the videos. All times are Eastern. Look after each other. It's wild out there. Be whatever support you can, but make sure you take care of yourself. It's wild out there, baby. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Chuggy loves you. And so do I. Be great.